Danvers, and welcome to the February 18th Board of Selectmen's meeting. And we'll start with a pledge. Diane, would you lead us, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have an approval of the minutes from February 4th?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. At this time, if there's anybody in the audience with new business that's not on the agenda, it's your opportunity to speak. Hearing no new business, we'll go to number 3. The board is in receipt of an application from North Shore Running Series TR Ramsdale for a 4-mile road race Sunday, March 15th, 9 a.m., beginning and ending at Danvers High School tennis court parking lot. Mr. Ramsdale, you're there already.
Good evening.
Thank you. Please let us know what you're doing. Oh, I think this is a renewal.
It is a renewal, yeah, but I
Okay.
figured I'd show up and answer any questions that you might have.
Well, let the folks at home know what it is.
It's a 4-mile road race, begins and ends at Danvers High, as you said, up around Burley Street and, that neighborhood up there to keep away from the busier part of town. Last year, we did it to benefit one of our friends in our running group passed away very suddenly, so all the proceeds went to his family to help get through things that people have to get through. This year, we're going to do, I like to mix it up and give different charities every time. So this year, I think I'll give it to Make-A-Wish.
Oh, that's
Next year, you come up with a charity, and I'll entertain that.
Very good. Okay.
But last year, we were able to give Phil's family, it was just over $4,600.
Wow.
Nice. Okay, great.
It's a good
Questions, David?
Nothing, thank you.
Diane?
No. I say it every time, but I only have 5 meetings left, so I'm going to say it again. Thank you. You do so much that people don't realize who our volunteers are in town. And you've done so much. I'd love to know how much money you've raised over all these runs that you've done, but really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gardner?
No, I too, I echo Selectman Langley's comments. It's really nice that, your running, your North Shore Running Series embraces the opportunity to give back to the community. So we appreciate that effort, and we appreciate you switching it up every year and spreading the wealth, spreading the goodwill. Thank you.
Bill?
I just want to thank you very much for it. Great asset to our community, and continue. Good luck.
Thank you.
What's the will of the board?
I move that we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Thanks, yeah.
Number 4, the board will meet new board and committee members whose appointments are made by the selectman and town manager. Voting on those appointments, which require selectmen's approval. And I think what we'll do, board, is we'll hear from the Conservation Commission, take our votes, then we'll do the bottom red ones, take our vote, and then the town manager can speak to his appointments that are in the middle. If that's agreeable. Mr. Manager, you have anything to start with?
I think that makes sense. There are so many new faces tonight, we needed a 30-row, 5-column table to keep track of them. It's with excitement that we're presenting the candidates. We had a great response to some recent advertisements for some openings, and then, as you can see in the second column, the talent pool continues to produce candidates for boards and committees. So you've had a chance to see the background materials. We have a broad range of backgrounds and experiences and skill sets. But I think with that, we do have 3 appointments to the Conservation Commission, 1 regular member, 2 alternate members, Ann McGill, Joe O'Donnell, and Ken Wally are you Joe? We have all 3 here, and so they show up first. These are manager appointments that require selectman confirmation.
Thank you. So thank you all for coming tonight. I'll address all of you at once. It's important for this board to know who we're appointing. It's a population of 28,000. I can't know everybody. So I appreciate you coming in here. And I will ask you one by one just to go up, introduce yourself so the folks at home see who you are. You can make a few brief comments. If any of my board members have any questions, they'll ask them in turn. So with that, we'll start with Ann McGill. Thank you. Let's go right up there and introduce yourself for the folks at home, Ann.
I'm Ann McGill. I live over on Hobart Street. I am an adjunct professor at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. Writing and research, everyone's favorite English department course. My profession has been human resources. I have a small consulting practice. I am from the Berkshires, but I've lived here 34 years, so I have a good sense of the town. I am very excited to be considered for the Conservation Commission. Conservation, ecology, gardening, these are all interests to me, things I care about, and I wanted to take the opportunity that was presented in the newspaper, that I read the advertisement. I said, this sounds like something that I want to give my time to. Now, I did read Section 10 of the Massachusetts Wetlands Act. I hope we don't have a test.
Thank you. 1 minute, Ann. Let me just see if my fellow board members have questions.
Okay.
Bill?
Ann, I've known Ann for many, many years. Her daughter worked for me for many years at the farm. If you want someone to give you advice on a home garden, you go see Ann. She has one of the best. She has one of the best in Danvers. And I was very happy to see your name down here, Ann. It's good to get you on board to be participating in the town. I'm very happy to see you there.
Gardner?
No, I read your CV, and I can see where your interest in the Audubon and the trustees of the reservation dovetail well. So thank you for your offer to help the public service.
Diane?
Nope, thank you, very impressive resume, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
David?
Hey, Dan. Ditto, and, the conservation work with the Wetlands Protection Act may initially look a little intimidating, not if you can read English, and I think that you probably can. So you'll read the rules and follow the rules, and you'll be a great asset.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Joseph O'Donnell? Welcome.
How's it going, everyone? My name's Joe. Graduate of Danvers High School, class 2015. Graduated with Mr. Clark's son. The reason that I was interested in this position is I haven't really had experience in a position like this before, but I do frequent a lot of the wildlife areas in Danvers. I do frequent the Ipswich River portion. The water, the Danvers River. I have a boat, go down the Danvers River every summer. And, I've been around town to the different wildlife areas, the canoe launch, the bird sanctuary. I've been around these areas, and nature is something really I'm passionate about, something that I'm looking to preserve, especially in this town. So, I saw this as an opportunity to get involved and make an impact. So that's why I stepped up, and, that's why I'm here. So, I'm looking to make a difference and help Danvers, protect the wildlife that we do have.
Thank you. Gardner?
No, I was impressed with your, again, reading your resume, your education in Chile and China, and as well as your professional experience. So I'm very happy that you're volunteering to help the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diane?
Yeah, I saw that too, and I realized that the 20 years of Spanish they made me take, I still can't say that right. I can count to 10 still, though. Universidad Adolfo Ibanez? Close?
Adolfo Ibanez.
Ah, see, that's why nobody ever asked me to go. But it's very impressive, and really, really excited that we have some youth coming back and being part of a volunteer basis. It's just a great thing to see. We need a variety of people, so thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you.
David?
Dan, it looks, Joseph, as though you would be methodical and thorough in reading the rules, following the rules. It's not just your heart as far as loving birds and the Ipswich River. It's looking at the rules that the legislature and the town meeting have adopted for the protection of those interests and following the law. And I'm sure you'll do that, and you've got somebody else who can help you read here. Okay? Thank you.
Bill?
Joe, I'm very pleased to see you participating in the town government. We really want a lot of recruits from your generation. You've got to take over from us old guys that have been around too long. And I look forward to seeing a fresh face, and yours among others, on the Conservation Commission. You've got a big responsibility, and good luck. And I know that your enthusiasm for the environment will be very well used in that committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kenneth Wally?
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ken Wally. I'm a Maritime Academy graduate. I went to sea in the Merchant Marine as an engineering officer for 9 years. Came to shore and went to work with cows. I worked my way up to engineering and operations manager for Agrimark. I built the Cabot cheese plant. At one time, I ran 13 different manufacturing plants. Then I went out into my own consulting business, ran my own consulting business for a number of years. Did projects, did one project in Sierra Leone, West Africa, but did projects all over the country. The Cabot cheese plant, I built that. I built a big butter powder plant operation for them up in West Springfield. I've done from ground up projects. The biggest project I did was $62 million. Large work, small work. And my interest, I'm retired, and I'm an avid boater on the Danvers River. I have a boat at Danvers Port Yacht Club, and I'm up and down the river all the time, and I see a lot of things that really shouldn't be happening in the river. I'd like to see that be cleaned up a little bit better than it is. And I think I can supply some very good input, valuable input, very detailed engineer. Obviously built very large projects. And at one time I had 176 employees. So, but I'd like an opportunity to contribute to some well-being in the town, cleaning up, like that river. And that's it.
Thank you. Diane?
No, it's just really nice that somebody who sees something and wants to have a voice is willing to step forward and do it in the appropriate way. So really appreciate that you're willing to put the time in to help maybe cure some of the things, or at least start a discussion on some of the things you've seen. So really appreciate it. And these three members, what a pool of talent we're getting on the Conservation Committee. So thank you so much.
David?
Dan. Kenneth, I think engineering and management skills will be very, very helpful on the commission, as I've said to the other two new members. Reading the rules, going by the rules, and you'll, of course, be in contact with engineers presenting things about calculations and measurements of setbacks from plants and water things, and I think that you'll be a very, very helpful adjunct to the commission, and I'm so glad that you're willing to serve.
Thank you.
Bill?
Ken, I was very impressed with your background. Regrettably, 70 years ago, we had 16 dairies in Danvers and about 3,000 cows. There's none here now. Sorry about that. But I have a great background. You have some great credentials, and I hope that you use your talent for us in Danvers. We're really appreciative. Thank you.
I've been out in farms that are factories. They're not farms.
Oh, yeah.
They're milking 3,000 head 3 times a day. It's unbelievable how big some of these dairy farms have gotten. And it's killing the local guys, the small guys, especially now.
I went down to one in Florida a few years ago, 45,000 acres.
Wow.
They were milking from 6 in the morning till midnight. Just amazing.
3 times a day.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
people from Wisconsin was on a bus with us, so they couldn't believe it. They couldn't
Yeah.
compete with it.
It's unbelievable what they do to those poor cows.
Gardner?
No, I was impressed. I'm a project manager myself by trade, so I focused in on that part of the resume. But again, I appreciate your desire to right wrongs that you perceive based on your being on the river. So thank you for your thank you for your willingness to serve as a volunteer.
I collected a few licenses along my way. The chief engineer of a power plant, master pipe fitter, real estate broker, refrigeration contractor, refrigeration technician. I was always too cheap to hire people, so any license I needed, rather than pay somebody with that license, I'd go out and get it myself. It would save the company a lot of money. So,
Thank you, Kenneth.
you're welcome.
Want a motion to confirm the 3 members for the Conservation Commission as
Please.
presented?
Second the motion?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, congratulations.
Candidates.
We'll go next to the Historic District Commission. Is Daniel here? Oh, yes, he is. Please go to the, Daniel Gagnon, introduce yourself to the people at home.
Hi, my name's Dan Gagnon. I'm a town meeting member here to be nominated for the Historic District Commission. For work, I'm a high school history teacher. I'm also a historian. I have 2 history degrees. My research focus has been the witch trials, which fits nicely with the Salem Village Historic District. Many of my projects have dealt with places within the district, particularly memorials. This past fall, I had an article come out in an academic journal about how the witch trials in particular have been memorialized more recently, or since 1692. And all of those places were within the district. In addition to that, I have, for 10 or 11 years, been involved with Rebecca Nurse Homestead as a volunteer. And I now serve on the board of directors of the museum.
Good, thank you. David, you want to start?
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, Daniel. What an interesting background you have for this particular now. Some of these people, you know, they could serve on they're kind of fungible. I think you've made the perfect application for the perfect job, and I'm so glad that you did.
Thank you.
Bill?
Congratulations as a fellow former teacher, history person. We haven't been around for as long as the witchcraft trials, but my minister corrected the mistake 17 years afterwards here for half a century, so we've been around a while too. But good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gardner?
I know Dan personally. I've known him for years. I also enjoy reading his byline in the local paper on various historic issues. So he does a great job educating and helping educate the citizens on historic sites and locations. So I am impressed with his references on the talent pool, and can't speak highly enough of Dan, so I'm fully in support of this. Thank you.
Diane?
No, again, another person who's been volunteering and been out there and town meeting member, so I think the Historical Society needs a little light. Don't tell anybody I said that, but it does need a little light, so good luck.
Thank you.
David? Did you start? Finish.
I started.
So very good. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Town Manager Matt Moser is a reappointment.
The reappointments are not here, so Dan
Okay,
is the
very good.
only new member of the.
So
for the
board, we
various
can
boards.
have a motion on the Historic District Commission appointments.
I'd like to move.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take Cable Advisory Committee. They're all reappointments. William Bates, William Nicholson, Coley, Rybicki. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
First and second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Zoning Board of Appeals, John Broner and Corinne Doherty. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? None?
Yes, there is.
Yes?
May I speak?
Yes.
I'm prepared to vote reappointment for these 2 members, but I'm very cautious about rubber stamping anything about the existing Zoning Board of Appeals in Danvers, because for the past 8 or 10 years, I have been reading the decisions, and I am of the view that most of them are not lawful, and that the Zoning Board of Appeals is not following the law. I have I think the backing of the board and the town manager that there is going to be some training as to what the legal aspects of the zoning board are. And so I am voting to approve and not to rubber stamp, because these zoning board of appeals appointments are much too precious for this community. It must be, the board must be people who know what the law is, follow the law, and realize that it is not a candy store giveaway. Thank you.
Thank you. So at that point, Mr. Town Manager, is there plans to do some training?
With the zoning special town meeting in the rearview mirror, David and his staff and Aaron Henry are working on a land use summit for a little bit. We were thinking probably summertime, and then closely following that would be training opportunities for all of our regulatory boards.
Very good.
Either through Murphy, Hesse, 2 Mule or some other organizations that David and his colleagues have access to. So
Thank you.
We've heard you.
What's the will of the board on the zoning board of appeals?
I move we accept the appointments as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? We had it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. Last is Board of Registrars, Wally Typert.
I move we accept the application. as
Second.
presented.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with the Board of Health. We have 4 new appointments tonight, one on the Board of Health, one on the Planning Board, one on the Cultural Council, and one on the Municipal Light Board. Sheila Laffey was recommended to me, and I had a chance to meet with her, and I am pleased to be able to present her tonight for the open seat on the Board of Health. We had a strong response when that vacancy was announced. Sheila works for Leahy as a program manager, with a background in healthcare management and on a team that focuses on substance abuse, specifically in prenatal and expecting mothers. So a new perspective and I think a great skill set to offer to the Board of Health. She has had the opportunity to meet with, I believe, Peter Moretti and Mark Carleo. And again, she and I had the chance to sit down and talk a little bit about the role of the board. So I'm very excited to be able to appoint her, and I think she'd be.
Great. Sheila, could you go up and introduce yourself to the folks at home, please? Say a few words.
Hi, I'm Sheila Laffey. I've lived here in Danvers for about 18 years. As Steve mentioned, I do work at Leahy I'm a program manager, and it's for a high-risk intervention team. It's actually a multidisciplinary team consisting of physicians, physician assistants, pharmacists, social workers, community health workers, and recovery coaches. So we cover actually a broad range of patient populations. So there's 3 programs on that team. 2 focus really on substance use and opioid use disorder specifically. 1 is geared towards moms who are pregnant or parenting children up to 3 years. There's wraparound supports for these women to be able to raise their family and get on a path to recovery. Then we have another program that's designed for opioid users to get immediate help in the ED, whether it be medication for addiction treatment or wraparound services with recovery coaches. And then we also have a program that's designed to prevent overutilization of the hospital, basically. So really what it's designed for is to help people who are isolated, could be homeless, people who don't have a lot of natural supports, who end up using the hospital for their support system. So our team does whatever we can to get the people healthy in the community. We connect them with various supports in the community so that they can stay at home and not be frequenting the hospital as much. So we do a lot of work on our teams to keep people healthy in the community. So when I saw the opportunity to be part of the Board of Health and maybe keep the community healthy, I jumped at the chance and am very excited to be here.
Very good, thank you. Board members, this is the town manager's appointment. I don't think it's necessary for us to ask questions. We're going to hear them out unless somebody has something.
Would make a comment.
Yes.
Of the superbly qualified people that we are privileged to review tonight. Certainly, Sheila, what a great addition you would be and will be to that board. And so thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Planning board?
For the Planning Board, we have Lou George in the audience. Most of you know Lou. You may not know he has a degree in geography with an emphasis in, I think, urban economics.
I did know that.
Okay. So Lou will actually be filling a seat that is not yet vacant, but will be vacant at the end of this month when Charles Smith, who is one of our Planning Board members, is moving all the way to Salem, which requires him to give up his seat. So we're very excited to have Lou, who has stepped up and volunteered to give up some of his precious free time to help us on that very important board.
Great, good, good.
Thank you very much. As I said, I'm Lou George, and I was born in Danvers. Born in Danvers at the Hunt Hospital, not the newish one, as you call it. But I was born and raised in Danvers, and really come from a family in which we've long-term residents of the town. My grandfather came to Danvers from Greece in the 1920s. Ran a small grocery store in Danvers Port. I grew up on Water Street. Now my wife and I live on Park Street, right here in Danvers. And after being away down in D.C., I'm a lawyer, work for having spent time in the nonprofit as well as the federal sector, decided to come back up to Danvers, and was interested in getting back involved with the town. And so I'm, in addition to being in the to be serving on the planning board, I've also been a member of the River Committee for the past couple of years, and I've just been, I have a strong appreciation for Danvers, for what it has been. As Steve mentioned, I was a geography major in college. My undergraduate thesis was on recent land use changes in Danvers Port, studying the progression from shipbuilding to industrial and back into the 1980s into, then it was getting into, Crease and Cook Tannery coming down, the, changes to more recreational and residential uses. So I have an appreciation for the history of Danvers, but I also see this as a very exciting time in the town as well for the future as well. So I'm very happy to serve.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? David?
We would be remiss to not mention Louis' father. Your father was on the planning board, wasn't he, Louis?
He was on the planning board. One of my earliest times was, I think at one point as a kid, I sort of had the guts to say, Dad, you're not spending enough time, we're not spending enough time together. So he took me to his meetings. So I remember sitting at planning board meetings. He was a planning board member until 1979, 1980, when he ran for the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Yep.
Great family.
Yep.
Louis, I have fond memories of Louis as a young kid. I was a grad assistant for his dad when I was doing an urban geography course, and we traced the primary trade areas of the secondary shopping centers within the prime trade area of North Shore. And we traced down 45,000 cars for 3 or 4 successive Saturdays. And Louis was sitting in the back seat of the Volkswagen. I remember driving along, taking the numbers down, and John's driving it. We had a couple of other grad assistants, and we had a ball into the registry of motor vehicles, looking up all the files of all these people, and finding out who had certain numbers and stuff like that. But
Yep.
Louis, you were a great addition to that, and I'm so happy that you continue the George tradition.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
And I've been fortunate enough to work with Lou on the River Committee, so certainly supportive of this, for what that's worth.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Manager, Cultural Council.
Dana D'Angelo is in the audience. Dana reached out to the town through the talent pool and expressed an interest in the Cultural Council, and you received her talent pool form. She has some experience in working with the schools, and I think experience we'd all like to hear about acting in New York and working at the Boston Fine Arts Museum, among other things. So she's eminently qualified for this position.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Dana D'Angelo. I live on Bradley Road. I've been a Danvers resident just over 9 years. It's so nice to put all of your names and faces together, too. I'm a mom right now. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom. Before that, one of my iterations ago, I have a degree in fine arts and master's in fine arts, and I was an actor performer in New York. I did regional. Most notably I was in a 1998 revival of a Broadway show, A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller. It was certainly a dream come true and one of the high points of my life so far. After sort of doing all that, when we moved, I wanted to start a family, so I wanted to come back. I grew up not far away from here. We moved to Danvers, and one of the first things I noticed was that there was an art association in town, which was so lovely, and I live right around the corner, and it's so nice to see that it's used and programmed year-round. One of the other things I love about our community's culture and arts is my kids are in up to middle school, is that the music and the art programs in the elementary and the middle schools are unbelievable. I continue to be blown away by all the things my kids do in elementary and middle school. And the performances I've seen at the middle school and the high school level are really quite amazing. I went to my first cultural council meeting just this year, sitting in to hear some of the proposals for the grants this year, and I just immediately felt like it was something I wanted to be involved with. I reached out to Mary Beth Berry, who told me about the talent pool and sort of how to get involved. And I'm just thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be involved to continue to bring culture and humanities to our town. I think it's so important for our children and for our adults. It's such an important part of our life.
Thank you. Any comments, board members?
Sister Weight Watcher, I love this. I'm reading her resume.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the first thing I picked up, you're a Sister Weight Watcher.
May I comment? Ed?
Yes.
Once again, what a superbly qualified person. And now I have to confess, reading all of the, I didn't know we had a cultural council in Danvers, and I've been here for 77 years, so live and learn.
There we go.
But wow, so what a talent you will bring to us, and thank you for your
Thank
willingness
you.
to
I'm
serve.
thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Oh, great, thank you. Mr. Manager, Municipal Light Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last but not least, Eric Mitchell, who also happens to be on the Cultural Council. David, just pointing that out. Eric is a candidate who filled out a talent pool form after I harassed him at daycare a number of times as I got to know him there. And he started with the Cultural Council, and when the opening on the light board opened sort of surprisingly and tragically before the holidays, I asked Eric if he'd be interested in serving on that board, and he had a chance to sit with David Lane to talk about the roles and responsibilities on that board. You have Eric's talent pool form. He has a master's in public administration, has some recent exciting job news, which we're grateful we locked him down before this news broke, because I'm not sure he would have had the time after the news broke to give to us. But I'll let Eric introduce himself a little more than I have, but he will be a welcome addition on the Municipal Light Board.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Eric Mitchell. I am recent to Danvers. I think 2015 is when I arrived in the community. I've always been a strong believer in community, and so, the Cultural Council I've served on for the last 2 years, which is a lovely process. You should come to next time. We encourage more people to come and see how we, make the sausage when we're giving out the awards. But when Steve and I talked about, Municipal Light Board, it really mirrors some of the work that I do. I'm currently Vice President and Chief Operations Officer for a nonprofit in the North Shore. And so I deal with bills, I deal with light bills, energy bills of all kinds. And so I have some level of familiarity as well as paying light bills here where I live. And so my background in public administration and political science, I'm into the operations of what makes things go at municipal level and in the community. And so I look forward to learning more about Danvers and the community and what makes it go. And as Steve will tell you, that has been really part of my search all along. It really is to get deeper and more closer aligned with what's going on in the community.
Very good, thank you. Comments, board members?
No, thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
Another phenomenally qualified person, but it just occurs to me that our town manager essentially designed this talent pool program for Danvers, and has it paid off? Congratulations, Steve.
Yep,
Great
I
job.
agree.
Welcome, Eric. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep. So, thank you for your offer. This is actually a board I sat on. I was a municipal light board member for years before I became a selectman, and found the role very challenging, not only in learning how, we purchase power and distribute power, but primarily acting as a citizen liaison. You'll get the calls. Why is my light bill so high? And so on and so forth. And work as an advocate for the citizen to the light board itself. So your resume and your background dovetails well with that opportunity. So thank you for your offer to serve.
Thank you.
It's a great coincidence that there was a major feature article about you in the paper tonight. I enjoyed reading that and said, wow, he's the guy, he's going to see him tonight. That's great. Congratulations. Glad to meet you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And good luck in your new job.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. So,
Good job,
Mr.
Steve.
Town Manager, again, thank you for the talent pool effort, and I'm very happy to see that of these 15 people that we're reappointing or appointing tonight, 8 of them are new. That's really great. This is what the community needs and thrives on, is new involvement, new ideas, new outlook, and I appreciate everyone stepping up to serve. Very important for the community, and good luck to you all. Mr. Town Manager?
This is the point in the program where I did warn them all they could flee after this agenda item. They're not required to stay here for the rest of the meeting tonight, but thank you, and good luck to all. Good luck to you all.
See you, bye-bye.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming.
Glad to meet you, Eric.
See you again. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, that was quite a promotion.
Not the same faces.
So, Steve, the Conservation Commission is one of the few commissions I couldn't get appointed to. I guess I didn't have the qualifications.
I couldn't get appointed to the rec committee.
No.
I'm not kidding you.
Wow. All right. Number 5, the board will consider a request regarding the relocation of a 50-foot right-of-way and the Beaver Brook residential subdivision. Attorney McCain, please wait till you're called on and recognized. Please have a seat.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You received information tonight from Attorney McCann related to this topic, as well as a memorandum from Director of Planning and Economic Development, David Fields, including language related to the easement and the topographical maps associated with the area that's under discussion tonight. By way of abbreviated background, the underlying project here has been before a number of the local boards and has the approvals in place to be built. And the request before the board tonight is to consider voluntarily relocating in the easement that the town holds within that subdivision layout. And I think with that, I would defer to, I believe, Attorney McCann to present. And I think David Fields would be happy to answer any questions or offer any context that the board is looking for in reaching its decision.
Thank you. Attorney McCann?
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the Beaverbrook Woods LLC. We do have some plans to show you of the location of the existing right-of-way and the proposed right-of-way. Would you like us to set those up a little closer to you?
Where are they now?
They are right now
In the back of the
in
room.
the back of the
Back room.
room.
Set them up on this side, if you would, please. I think over here, so the camera up there can see it.
While those are getting set up, this is an 8-lot subdivision that, as the town manager has pointed out, has gone through the definitive subdivision approval process with the planning board, and we do have an approved, endorsed definitive subdivision plan creating 8 lots. During the course of that subdivision approval, the location of an existing 50-foot right-of-way that the town has the benefit of was located on the plan and was discussed. And part of the discussion included showing on the approved plan the location of the existing right-of-way, which you see there, and whether that location could be and should be relocated to be in the best location as it relates to not only the lots, but as it relates to access for the town going forward. So what I started this discussion back some months ago with town council, and we discussed the process, and we can request that the board through the town through the Board of Selectmen agree that a relocation is appropriate to the area as we've shown it, and then proceed forward. As the owner of the servient estate, we could relocate that easement with the agreement of the town, and we could do that through this board. So that's what we're requesting. I did present a letter to the board dated December 10th that outlined what we are requesting and why. We think the relocation of the 50-foot wide easement, again, makes sense from a utility standpoint, both for the town as well as for the development of the Beaver Brook subdivision. I think it probably makes sense to discuss, first of all, the creation of the easement as it exists now. And the easement was created back beginning in 1915 by Hugh Healy, when Hugh Healy owned the entirety of what is now the Beaver Brook Woods subdivision. And he began at what's the right side of your plan, on the east side, conveying out strips of land. He began doing that in 1915. And as he conveyed out those strips, he reserved to himself, his heirs, administrators, and successors a right-of-way 50 feet wide. That was the language that was put in the deeds. It wasn't appurtenant to any land. The purpose for the easement wasn't specifically stated. It simply said, I'm conveying off this land, but I am reserving for myself and my heirs and assigns a right-of-way 50 feet wide. And he did this on these strips, going forward, starting off from the easterly side forward, and that occurred 5 different times between himself and then when he died, his wife continued to convey out these strips. So what we ended up with is an easement 50 feet wide that isn't appurtenant to any land and doesn't have a particular purpose. When Hugh Healy died and then his wife Leonie passed away, the Healy family ended up having 1 strip left. The estate never paid their taxes. So in the 1970s, the town of Danvers took that remaining strip for taxes. So by taking that strip of land, which was the only remaining land of Healy left, the argument is that the right-of-way then went with that strip of land, so the town ends up with a 50-foot wide easement. And that's in the location, and Scott can point that location out to you. What we are proposing to do, and it's not developed now, it's a wooded area. There is no footpath, there's no easement that's been developed, created, other than on paper at this particular time. So during the course of this subdivision, we investigated and discussed with the planning board a relocation of the easement. And what we are proposing is to relocate the easement from the area that you see there to having the easement run with the cul-de-sac, so it will be improved and paved with the cul-de-sac, and then having an easement off of the end of the cul-de-sac between 2 lots. And have that easement be specifically granted to the town, so there is no question as to was the easement intended for, what can it be used for, can it provide access to the abutting property, all questions that I think legal questions exist with the existing easement that the town has. We could clean all of that up and relocate the easement and make an affirmative grant so that the town would then have a right-of-way 50 feet wide for pedestrian or vehicular access, there's no limitation there, to the outer edge, which happens to be a stone wall. The other side of that stone wall is the Fox Run open space, which would then provide access to the rail trail. So it would allow for a continuous easement for the town to have. And that's the proposal that we have before you is to agree with us that we can relocate that easement. As I provided in my letter, the case law has set out a three-pronged test for when an easement can be relocated by the servient estate, which would be us. And that would be, one, if the relocation does not significantly lessen the utility of the easement. And in this case, the relocation, we believe, does not lessen the utility of the easement, rather improves the use of the easement by improving the access. Number two, the relocation does not increase the burdens of the owner of the easement, or the town, in its use or enjoyment. Again, in this case, the relocation actually decreases the burdens on the town, as the developer will improve the right-of-way by constructing the road and thus creating, at least for the vast majority of the easement, an improved right-of-way. And number three, the location does not frustrate the purpose for which the easement was created. And the relocation is, in our opinion, entirely within the purpose of the reasons for which the easement was created. And by granting an express easement to the town in the course of this relocation, we would eliminate any claims of overburdening of what the existing easement is. Mr. Chairman, I think at this point, if you would like, I would like to have Scott Cameron, our project engineer, review specifically with you.
Before he does that, just a few quick questions.
Sure.
You said it's appropriate to make this change, based upon what reasoning?
Given the layout of the subdivision as it has been approved, the relocation is appropriate in that where the easement falls now is between two house lots. In the front of one house.
That the project developed?
I beg pardon?
That the project developed?
Correct, yes. As a utilization of the existing property under the terms of the R2 zoning district. The layout of the land meets all of the frontage requirements, lot area requirements, all of that. But the right-of-way passes through a location that is not particularly ideal. And it's not...
Ideal for?
I would say either for the landowners, ultimately, the lot owners, or for the town. If the right-of-way stays where it is now, and the town wishes 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever, to exercise that right-of-way, the right-of-way falls across the front yard of one lot and the backyard of another. It can do it, it's fine, that works. That's okay. We've got a subdivision plan. The developer understands that that's an encumbrance that will fall on those lots.
Does it currently access the open space?
The right-of-way currently goes to the subdivision, to the stone wall on the east side. It does not access, I don't believe, and I think this is a legal argument, that can be made as far as the viability of the current easement. Does it allow the town to go over the stone wall? Right now, the easement goes up to the stone wall. Mr. Healy, when he created the easement in 1917, didn't have a right to go over the wall. He had no rights to access the land on the other side. He retained an easement. He reserved an easement. He reserved a right-of-way for himself. It's not how we draft an easement now, but it is how it was drafted then. And that That's the right in the easement that was created. That's what the town got when it took the land for taxes, because the town only takes what the individual had. And the estate had this 50-foot right-of-way reserved for the individual with no purpose, not to access the other side. Mr. Healy couldn't access the other side. He had no rights. So that is the overloading of the easement question, legal question. That if the easement remains in the place where it is now, someone down the line, not necessarily this developer, but a lot owner down the line could say, hey, wait a minute, that easement doesn't allow
I thought it was there somewhere.
you to go over the stone wall. It only goes up to the stone wall. We're not making that argument now. That issue is out there. There are issues with the validity and viability of the existing right-of-way. What we're proposing is making it clear, relocating the easement, granting a specific easement so that there would be no question that the 50-foot right-of-way as relocated can be used to access the Fox Run open space, which then accesses the rail trail.
And you mentioned it would be improved. How so?
The right-of-way would be improved up to the cul-de-sac by the roadway, because the right-of-way would then follow the roadway. So right now, again, from Maple Street to the east side of the subdivision layout is not improved. So the right-of-way that the town currently has is wooded. This right-of-way would be improved up to the cul-de-sac by the creation of the approved roadway, because our proposal is for the right-of-way to follow the roadway up to the cul-de-sac and then have a spur off of the right-of-way that would fall between two lots, thus not in somebody's front yard and in somebody's backyard as it is now.
Thank you. Any members want to ask questions of the attorney before Scott makes his presentation? David?
Well, I just want to note that the developer is essentially threatening the town of some problem that may exist in the future because of their design of a subdivision that gets the maximum number of lots in an area of land which is very difficult to design. The easement is there. The developer could have designed the subdivision to avoid any of this problem and maybe had two less house lots. Why is that the town's problem or a legitimate reason for the town to give up the easement where it is? And I will stop talking there because I would like to hear David speak to his very scholarly, which I think is a very scholarly review of the reasons. And I must also say, while I'm here, the developer is relying upon a Massachusetts Supreme Court case which simply is not applicable to this situation. And so that surprises me. The conditions that are set out by the state Supreme Court for the resolution of conflict among dominant easement holders, adjacent easement holders, it applies to a totally different situation. It's not this case. This problem that this developer wants this board to cure is a problem that the developer made by not designing around the problem, which they could have done. So it would be one less house lot. Well, everybody wants the most house lot. I understand. I used to work in the business. But we used to design around the problem too, and that's something that wasn't done here. The problem is self-created. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments?
When the gentleman does his presentation, my interest would be, what is the setback between the proposed easement lines and the two adjacent houses? How close to the houses does each of the corners of those two homes or buildings come to the green line that's there? That would be interesting to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on the board?
I'll reserve questions till later.
Thank you. Scott, you want to make your presentation and answer Gardner's question?
Thank you for having us tonight. For the record, my name is Scott Cameron,
Welcome.
civil engineer and owner of the Moore and Cameron Group at 66 Elm Street in Danvers. This has been a few years in the making, getting to this point in time. And I want to start first in presenting what I did is I took one of the site plans from the subdivision, the approved subdivision. I just added some color to it so you can see really the 4 lots that are in and around the area where the existing easement's located and where we're proposing to relocate it, and how we got to this point. There has been a lot of effort and iterations put into the design of this project. This is the culmination of between what we were doing internally and then going through concepts with the town boards, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, at least 30 different iterations of this plan getting to this point in time, working with the residents in the neighborhood, the people that own this land, putting this all together, surveying the entire block, which hadn't really been surveyed since it's maybe even ever. There were some monuments in place, but cleaning up a lot of title-related issues through those surveys for the existing landowners. And where we end up with, on the plan on the top, that's the location. You can see, highlighted that in purple. You can see the road coming up from Maple Street. You can see it bending. That alignment more or less follows the existing easement. It crosses over the parcel owned by the town. And then the existing easement continues straight to the right side of that plan. The road, of course, would turn kind of towards the bottom of the plan. And you end up with homes, as you can see, I highlighted in green. The brighter green is effectively the yards for these homes. The brown would be the home footprints themselves. And then the darker green would be the kind of the area that would be wooded now and within the easement area. Driveways I highlighted in gray. And you can see where that easement cuts right through the front yard of one house and effectively the backyard of another house. And that's where it is today. The length of that from the road, the portion of the road that would be improved to the easterly lot line is about 300 feet. And the elevation, really, as you get towards the end, the topography of the elevation drops off towards Beaver Brook. Beaver Brook is a perennial stream. It has a 200-foot riverfront area. Part of what we were designing through all this was to minimize impacts within that area. So we were trying to keep away from that natural resource. The grade drops off about 10 feet in the last 50 feet of that easement, so it drops off about a 1 foot every 5 foot grade in that area. And Mr. Colantoni, if you wouldn't mind swapping those plans out. So with the reconfiguration that we're proposing, yep, what we're proposing to do is to relocate just that portion of the easement that cuts through those potential house lots and put it in an area between the lots, which would, long term, we're planning this project out. We're not just looking at tomorrow. We're looking at 30 years from now, 20 years from now. We're looking at the future, planning out a location for that easement that would minimize the interface. There's been a lot of rail trail development, a lot of rail trail work. We know when these easements are going through what's perceived as someone's front yards or their backyards, whereas if they're kind of straddling or in an area that isn't in a portion of the property that they use, they're easier to develop. You get less opposition. They tend to be easier. This location between the two homes is an area that isn't going to interfere with the front or the rear yards of these homes. It's an area that can be fenced off and not really be impacting the lots themselves. We see this typically with other types of easements when we're looking at utility infrastructure, when we're doing new subdivisions. We'll put those easements on the side lot lines between lots to keep them between and not in the middle of, front or back of what people are perceiving as their yards. So we really felt this was a good area for this easement. We're also reducing the length of it from the improved portion of the right-of-way to the lot line to 170 feet, so about a 44% reduction in the length. And the maximum slope of the earth between the street and the easterly lot line is that same 1 to 5. So we're not changing or increasing the slope of the land. Even though the road does come up a little higher, that grade is still there. And again, you can see the dark green is the portion of the wooded area of the easement. The light green is the yards and that concept. The brown would be the houses. And you can see how, really the easement itself is coming off of that cul-de-sac in an area that is out of the way. The proposed homes, we're proposing to relocate this are much further away from the easement, so there's even a little bit of breathing room if the town chose to develop from, easement line to easement line, the full 50-foot width. If they're able to get approvals from that, from the Conservation Commission, there is a little more breathing room. So it leaves a little bit to grade or to work with the homes so that you're not building that easement right up to the houses. We're in the existing condition because we are trying to minimize the impacts and the development footprint. We are putting, the homes would be right up close to that, within a foot or two probably of the 50-foot right-of-way. So we felt this was a good solution. We felt because of the 44% reduction in the length of it, it would offer potential cost savings for whatever the town chooses to do, whether that's pedestrian or vehicular or whatever access goes through there. And we felt the grades were not any greater than with this than what were in the existing configuration of it. So again, this was a long process with a lot of effort put into it by a lot of different people. And I thank you for taking the time tonight to hear us.
Thank you. Any questions for Scott on the board?
I'm not sure he answered the question about how close to if the town were to embrace the full 50 feet of your proposed redesign, how close to each of the house corners would that then be?
So with what I drew here conceptually, you're looking at 10 to 15 feet away from the easement before you get to a house.
On both sides, 10 to 15 feet?
On both sides, yeah. The lot on the right of it is actually further away. That's closer to 25 feet.
Okay.
So that one has a lot more breathing room.
So if the town were to utilize that new one, it would be, if you're the house, on the lot line?
More or less, yeah. Yeah, for the easement line.
The easement line?
The easement line, correct. Yeah, we're about 20 feet apart.
So if you actually were to fence it, as you might have suggested, that's a fence that would go through that close?
Yeah, and you'd still have a side yard.
I'm trying to get a proportion.
Yeah, and you still have a side yard if you fence it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So I am not very experienced, and I don't even know why you're really here, because it hasn't been explained to me, so excuse my ignorance, as to, and maybe the town manager can. First off, I don't even know if this easement, we're not being guaranteed that it'll reach the rail trail, because we don't know what's over the other side of the wall, but why do we need this easement? What is the reason? I guess I need to know, what's the reason where we have to keep this easement? I don't understand that, I'm going to be honest. So in other words, we're relocating an easement, but why do we have to do that? I don't know, I don't understand a lot of this. Do we have to keep an easement? Is there a reason? Where does it go? I guess I'm a little confused as to the reason we're dealing with this easement. It's not the piece of land that town meeting voted down as selling, is it? Is that what this is?
The piece of town-owned property runs perpendicular to the easement that's being discussed.
Okay.
From the town-owned parcel is a rear lot from a Maple Street property. I don't know if I can answer the question, why would we keep an easement? I mean, we have easements all over Danvers for a variety of reasons. Mostly we use them for access to things or for utilities to run above or underground. In this instance, as Attorney McCann referenced, the town came into possession of this easement. And, from a utilization perspective, it does connect. I think the question raised about the stone wall is one that Dave DeLuca and Nancy McCann could probably have a spirited discussion about. But, the easement does allow us to access a piece of town-owned open space. And the request for the relocation, I think, it was mentioned that it would, be best for the lots and for the town. And I think that's where Selectman Mills was questioning. I think clearly would be more logical based on the layout of the subdivision. But Mr. McCann referenced the grade change, and I David addressed that in the memo that you received tonight in terms of some riprap work that would need to be done, and part of the stormwater management plan and an outfall that would be proposed as part of the subdivision. So the sort of the direct question of the board is, would the relocation of this easement be more or less or equally advantageous to the town than the one that it currently holds.
So who owns the land, the Fox Run land on the other side of the wall, and is it swamp?
I think David could probably speak to that better
Thanks.
than I could.
I apologize. I walked, originally when I had this conversation, we were looking at something different. And of course, then everybody went to open space, and I was left out of that. I was the one who wanted access to the rail trail, and there was all kinds of meetings going on that I wasn't seeing, so.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
David Fields, Planning Director. So the Fox Run open space on the other side of the wall is owned by the town. It's open space that was created when the road that made the Fox Run subdivision was done. So we can do whatever we want with it. It's not swamp. So there is wetland behind that. There's probably some wetlands on the open space, but I've walked it. It's walkable.
So can you walk from the trail to the cul-de-sac?
You can walk from the proposed rail trail to Fox Run open space off the rail trail.
And then all the way up to the cul-de-sac?
Yeah, depending on what you all do with this easement, yeah.
Okay, I am just, I have not walked that. I've walked the trail, I've walked the other area, but I have not walked this.
Sure.
So, and I just know there's a lot of water there.
Yep.
So,
There's a lot of
I
water.
just wanted to make sure, because I'm a little confused as to, I mean, I'm a little confused. I'll listen more, but I just guess this is the first time I've had this in 7 years, that I've had an easement, so, thank you.
Bill, any questions?
Yeah, I got several.
Yep, go ahead.
First of all, is this development essentially using the easement to access the buildable lots at the rear of the parcels over to the right-hand side of this piece of property?
When you say this easement, the portion, there is a right-of-way 50 feet wide that does go over the town-owned parcel. That is part of the roadway.
Now, and I see 4 parcels of land which this goes over before it gets to the subdivision,
Okay.
which I assume is not owned by these developers. One of them is a town parcel, I believe. They're to the north and west of the access, behind the old Finney house. Right in there, that's it. Well,
So what I just highlighted in blue, that's the real estate that is part of the project. So to answer your question, Mr. Clark, the lots to the left, there is existing 3 homes on that side. All 3 of those homes are remaining. And then the portions of the land in the rear, as well as the subdivision road, are being cut out of those. So those homeowners are staying. And then the rest of the subdivision is to the right. And what
but
you're
the
seeing in the middle-
development didn't buy the back part of those first 3 lots then, right?
Yes, it did.
You did?
Yes.
Why did they not put houses on there? It's not wetland.
It is wetland. There's a standing pond in that area.
Okay, so you're getting
Which 3 houses? are
2,
you
3,
referring
4,
to?
5, 6, 7, 8 houses in there, right?
Yes, to the.
Okay,
yes.
I think the answer to one of Diane's questions, though, about the access to the Fox Run property, if you look at the gradients on the map here, there's a pretty steep gradient from this cul-de-sac up the hill to get to the back of the property. And according to the document we got from Mr. Fields, it wouldn't be ADA compliant for that. In other words, if you look at that map over here, okay? You look at the gradient, the intervals for gradient. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 gradients, 7 going up the side of that hill. Now, I don't know what the scale is for this. Is it one for 5 feet or 1 for 3 feet, or?
So is that these lines? I mean, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm an accountant.
Yeah. Goes from the cul-de-sac up the first 30 feet or so, or 40 feet back from the cul-de-sac. It's a very steep grade there. What's the intervals for the contour lines?
Yeah, if I could, they're 2-foot contours. The maximum slope proposed, and of course, the town would have the flexibility with the ownership of the rights to that easement to do whatever they want in there, but the maximum slope that's proposed for the road is no greater than the maximum slope for grades that exist on the easement today in either location. And the steepest part is as you approach near that stone wall in the easterly lot line. That steepness there is about, for every 5 feet, it drops 1 foot. And that's the same or similar slope as to what we're proposing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I have the same question. He's allowing me to build off his question while we're on the topic. What you're suggesting, or what you talked about, is the fact that you wouldn't increase the grade. Obviously, the grade is the grade. However, the easement as it sits allows for the town, if we wanted to utilize that land, to pitch that grade farther up on what you're now going to have paved. What you've done is taken a long run that you could then pitch at a reasonable rate, if you wanted to, uphill, downhill. And we are now compelled at this point to go from the height of this cul-de-sac up, which makes it non-ADA compliant. You are reducing the ability for the town's easement to be created or constructed in a way that would make it ADA compliant, would make it a more gentle slope, as it were, because we would go further into what you're proposing to be roadway. So while the topography of the land right now isn't changed, I get that argument. The ability to create a more distinct slope is affected because now there's a road there, a street, and from the cul-de-sac up, you have a shorter run. Thank you.
If I may, it looks to me on this map that you're proposing to do the same thing on this cul-de-sac that you did with Carroll Way behind my house off Sandpiper, where you actually demonstrably lowered the level of the land and made the cut vertically, for example, over there, to get into the Endicott estate is almost impossible. And this looks like it's probably 8 or 10 feet sharper. Looks like you're lowering the level of some of that land where the cul-de-sac is, and then creating a very steep embankment on both sides of the cul-de-sac to get to the houses. And it doesn't make sense to me at all. I'm not, one of the things we're advised on is that as it stands right now, we could have vehicular access to the Fox Run Road, and we possibly would not have vehicular access to that property if this subdivision was put in as planned, as per a letter we got from David Fields. Is that right, David, roughly?
I need that explained.
They're gonna lower the land down at the end of the cul-de-sac, which will make a steeper grade to get out of the development.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to go up a steep grade to get to the Fox Run land, and that grade is too steep to comply with ADA accessibility. And you can't do it with a vehicle. And you look at the width of it, it's only 50 foot wide. If you put a retaining wall in there, it'd be like going through over there on 128 in Elliott Street, where they have that tunnel where you're going onto Route 128 North from Elliott Street. You'd have to almost cut something like that in to get up that
So,
steep grade.
Is this because of the easement, or is this
Because of
something
their
that went through planning
reconfiguration of the
board?
subdivision.
I'm just a little confused. Again, I'm trying to find out what is our job here. I've never done this. And is that what the planning board decides?
We're
or
looking
is
out for the town's right to get it
Is
back.
the easement causing that grade?
If I may, the
you.
planning board approved the subdivision.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen has the jurisdiction to determine whether or not it is advantageous, disadvantageous, or neutral for the town to abandon, relocate, or do anything else with their easement.
Okay.
And that's where I think David wanted to try to focus in on that in the materials he provided tonight.
Scott?
Yeah, thank you, and I do appreciate, you're not wrong. This is, basic geometry, right, rides over run. We have more length, so we can do a shallow road. A couple things to note. In order to achieve that over the existing location, to cut that grade, you'd be talking about anywhere from a 5 to a 10-foot excavation across these lots, potentially cutting off access to the lots themselves. Now, as the owners of that land, they have the right to access those lots. So you have a potential issue there. My second point is with respect to the access between the road and the open space parcel. We haven't designed anything for that. We don't know if it's a pedestrian access or if it's a vehicular access or what the town's desire would be. We haven't looked at the permitting requirements to construct anything within that easement moving forward when dealing with Planning Board or Conservation Commission or anybody that might be interested in that. But what I could show you is I could show you a design that was handicap compliant and may serve both vehicular and pedestrian access in the form of, I guess, a concept on what that might look like. Perhaps that might help you visualize what that connection may look like and why it would be better with this configuration than where it is now.
Thank you, Scott. At this time, I'd like David to come up and, if he would, please, and give us a summary of why this is more detrimental, less detrimental, or neutral to the town.
Sure. I can go into some of the facts. I mean, that's the decision that you're faced with. That's pretty subjective. I'm not going to comment on the merits of it in and of itself. I guess to Mr. Mills' point on that last point about the cutting off access to the lots, that's entirely...
Could you go a little slower,
Sorry.
a little louder?
Yes.
Speak into the microphone.
The point Mr. Mills made earlier about cutting off access or what have you, to the point Scott just made, it's entirely self-created, as David already pointed out. The easement was there. They could have worked around it. We're here tonight because we chose to push it off until tonight as opposed to in 2018 or 2019 or 2020. The other point I guess I'd make is with respect to Gardner's point about where the houses will be in relation to the easement, we have no idea where the houses will be. This is just a lotting plan. Those houses could be anywhere on those lots at all. The lots could be sold to another developer entirely who could build whatever they feel like. So I wouldn't stress so much about the footprints of the houses. I'd kind of focus on the layout of the lots and the layout of the easement.
So could I ask a clarifying question? So when the planning board heard the subdivision plan, it did not include the actual locations of the buildings, just the lot configuration?
That's correct in that that's actually the way the subdivision control law is administered. It's just the lotting. So you can do whatever you want in the setbacks, basically.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem. I guess I'd ask the chair and the board, I mean, we can go point for point here and spend 9 till 9:30 at the meeting here.
Well, I don't want to rush this. I want to
I agree.
a thorough hearing. Diane has some questions why we're doing this.
Yep.
And I think you need to give her your reasons for why the town doesn't feel it's appropriate.
Okay. With respect to the current right-of-way / easement that's on the property, there was essentially a reworking of the mouth of the easement in 1950. At that point, the easement was laid out to be used as all other ways within the town of Danvers. That means vehicular or otherwise. The easement that's going to be, or that's being presented, doesn't have that benefit and can't because there's a drainage structure in the middle of the proposed easement. So I can't drive a car over a drainage structure down a riprap slope now, and the town's probably not going to pay to move that to do it in the future, whereas the current easement is unobstructed. Granted, it's wooded, but it certainly won't be wooded when the developer goes in and clear cuts the entire lot. So I don't know if that answers a bit to your question about where the easement's going to go.
Well, I think Diane's question is why. Is it not?
Why do we keep the easement? I mean, what use, so where is it going? Right now, there's an easement. Is that the full extent of the easement, or does it travel beyond?
It does not. As far as we know, it starts at the mouth of where the current road is laid out, goes and makes a 90-degree turn, well, makes a degreed turn towards Fox Run open space. So that's what it currently does. That's the way it's been since, the early 1900s.
And if I could just, Diane, if you, one of the documents David provided was actually from the Moore and Cameron Group. It's labeled the existing conditions plan in the packet you received.
Yep, that's this one.
And it shows, that's the existing easement, and it shows no subdivision there. So that's where the current easement travels today through those back lots.
But this drawing goes to Maple Street.
Correct.
So that's the houses coming, so the current easement goes all the way like this?
They're only, the proposed relocation is only at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the current easement follows those two yellow
The
lines.
whole thing,
Yep.
thank you. That's what I've been trying to get at, is where was it? And so we want to cut it to here now.
It would take,
And
it would
this-
turn,
They want to,
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason they're here is because the road then will not be part of the easement any longer.
no, I think if you follow on the map that's up there, the road and the easement are going to be the same as you enter into the subdivision and turn right toward the lots at the back. And then where that first house lot is shown with the green lawn, it takes a turn down to the cul-de-sac and then back up again. Right? That's, am I?
Thank you, David. I mean, I'm trying to be fair because I really don't understand this.
Currently, they're congruent all the way to here.
Okay.
When this new road is built, the proposal is to move the easement from where it's going here to follow the right-of-way and then come out here after you go around the cul-de-sac.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
So right now, it goes a straight shot right to Fox Run.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
And so they're moving it, okay. Thank you so much. I saw that drawing and I'm saying, that's the road. Okay, sorry.
Nope, that's okay. David, the planning board approved the subdivisions, but didn't weigh in on the easement?
So what actually happened was, that's not entirely true. I think there was a little bit of a communication issue there. I'm not sure. I wasn't at the meeting, but 3 members of the planning board effectively took a straw poll to say that we don't feel this is more detrimental than the existing easement.
The new one? But there's no letter from them to us?
There is no letter. It's not, I mean, it's completely the Board of Selectmen's issue. It's really not the issue for the planning board to weigh in on where town-owned easements should or shouldn't go.
Mr. Chairman, if I could elaborate before Nancy speaks on this subject. So on December 5th, a morning meeting of the planning board was conducted to sign Mylars for the approved subdivision, which is not the one that's reflected here. At the conclusion of that meeting, I believe Attorney McCann asked the planning board to what their feelings were about, or whether they agreed that this made sense. And I just want to be clear, from a house placement perspective, it does make sense. But it's not the planning board's jurisdiction to weigh on whether the easement itself is more or less or equally advantageous to the town of Danvers. That's the Board of Selectmen's role.
And can I, just, David, can you just go back to one more thing for me? What is it that this easement doesn't allow them to drive? Why is it again? But just explain what it is they're riding over for me a little bit.
Sure. I think the applicant would propose the easement language to be the same as the current easement language. My issue was physically, I can't drive a car over it. There's stormwater infrastructure in that easement. It was originally laid out to be stormwater. It was never designed to be a pedestrian
In the one they're
easement.
proposing?
Yes.
Okay.
So unless the town goes in and moves that infrastructure at their own expense, you can't drive a car over it.
So the
So
town would incur that expense?
If the town ever wanted to do that, say we wanted to create a parking area at Fox Run, since the only other parking areas are in the center of town and off in Middleton. So if the rail trail gets built and we want to build a 3-lot, dirt parking lot, we would have to go in, move this stormwater infrastructure in this newly created subdivision ourselves. So, I mean, that was part of the physicality of it. I don't think the language that they're proposing would inhibit vehicle access. It's just, even if that's proposed, it's kind of irrelevant unless the town's going to
In
pay.
the town's opinion, it is not a good idea to ride over that storm drain.
Yeah,
Okay,
we would not be
that's
doing
what I'm
that.
looking for.
I mean, I guess I'd just say one more thing. I don't have much more after this. I just say, to date, this by right project has had 7 waivers from the planning board, 1 variance.
I'm sorry, David, you're going too fast for me.
Yeah, me too.
The current project has had 7 waivers from the planning board, 1 variance from the zoning board of appeals, and significant discretion given to it by the Conservation Commission. This is yet another thing that they're asking for. And the relief that they're asking really only benefits the development at the expense of Danvers residents. So I'll leave you with that. But if you have any questions, I'm here.
Nancy?
There was no variance for this project granted by the Board of Appeals.
What, did they go to the ZBA?
that had to do with the condominium development in the front on Maple Street that was conveying a portion of land to the developer for this project, and it was not for anything to do with the layout of the subdivision, and it had to do with the condominium project in the front. I was at the planning board meeting on December 5th, and there was a great deal of discussion about the right-of-way and the relocation of the right-of-way. And the reason that discussion occurred was because one of the conditions in the planning board's definitive subdivision approval was figure out the impact, the location of the right-of-way, how it fits with the layout of the proposed houses on the layout sheet, and figure out if there should be a relocation and how that process works. And that's what I took up with town council. So as a condition of the subdivision approval, we had to address that with the planning board, and that was part of the discussion at the December 5th meeting. And I have a copy of the minutes of the planning board's meeting, and it was quite a lengthy discussion. John, could you hand that into the chairman, please? But I think it's very important. It wasn't loosey-goosey, the planning board's feelings about this. The planning board has walked this property, and board member Langley asked about whether this was doable, the layout and what we're proposing. And the planning board has walked the land. And we have discussed this, and a great deal of thought was gone into it. And you'll find on the last page, page 6 of the minutes, there was an actual motion by the planning board. Zelensky motioned to send a letter to the Board of Selectmen indicating the planning board supports moving the town right-of-way easement to an angle off the cul-de-sac. They had that plan. That's what they were talking about. So the planning board thoroughly understands this is your decision, not a planning board decision. But I discussed with town council whether we should come to you first before we finalize the subdivision process with the planning board or afterward. And town council suggested to me, and I agreed with him, that it would be better to go to the planning board and get their opinion, because it was likely that you as the selectmen would want to be informed of what the planning board thought. So as you'll see from the minutes, there was a lengthy discussion, and Aaron Henry was at that meeting. You'll find a couple of spots within that memo, or that, not a memo, those are the official planning board minutes, where he indicated support of the relocation. But I think the important point here is that, in fact, there was a motion that there was to be a letter sent from the planning board to you indicating that the planning board supports the moving of the town right-of-way.
Thank you. Yes, we are interested in what the planning board's thoughts were on this matter, but at the end of the day, it's our decision.
It absolutely is.
Regardless of what their thoughts are. Thank you.
That is absolutely correct. I think if I could ask Scott to address this drainage structure.
Sure.
Easement idea also.
Yeah, so there is a drainage outfall from the cul-de-sac area, and it is in that easement. I will say the pipe itself is situated 35 feet to the left of the 50-foot easement, so you have 15 feet on one side and 35 on the other, which is plenty of room for a full road to go on by that. The other point that I want to make about that pipe is that it's designed in a manner that you'll never really see water leaving it. It would have to be such a catastrophic storm event that you'd ever see water. So it's there because we need to have an outlet, but the drainage calculations that we prepared in designing that pipe indicate that it will really never see water leaving it. I did also want to touch on why we had placed the homes, or we placed them in either scenario. And a lot of that has to do with the same reason why we're not proposing homes further to the right, close to the Foxford property. And again, that there's a riverfront area, 200 foot wide off of Beaver Brook. And one of our charges from the Conservation Commission, as Ms. Fields noted, was to minimize impacts within that 200-foot zone. So we made every effort possible to try and keep the development of the project as close to Maple Street or as close to that easement as possible. And that's what you're seeing as the result here. We were asked to push everything as close as we could to that easement to keep the development footprint away from Beaver Brook, which the Conservation Commission was charged with reviewing. Thank you.
Thank you. At this
Mr.
time-
Chairman,
Yep.
right here, it does say that a letter should have been sent to us that, and even in here, it's, one comment was that we complain that boards don't talk to each other, and that this, I mean, I still have not made up my mind on this. This is not it, but we did not receive this letter.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's,
Correct.
didn't want this.
That's why I asked the question.
May I make a comment on that?
Yes.
I think it's highly inappropriate for a proponent to ask a separate board to make a recommendation to another governmental board as to how it should exercise its discretion. It's wrong. I've never seen that done until recently. I don't think it's right at all. It's not one board talking to the other. It's one board interfering in the jurisdiction of another board, and it is very, very uncomfortable for me as a way of government should be acting. It's wrong. So I'm not going to consider that we didn't get a letter. We never should have got a letter. The request never should have been made to the planning board to give us a letter.
I don't think they made a request. I think it was just some board members, and it wasn't to tell us what to do.
I believe the attorney requested that they do so.
Not to tell us what to do, but I believe that Peg said she was fine with, as well, she let the Board of Selectmen know that the planning board thinks it is a cleaner way to do the right-of-way. That was all it was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gardner?
Sure, thank you.
Questions?
Bill, were you done yours?
I'm just waiting. I'll let you go. 'Cause
Okay.
Go ahead, Gardner.
All right. Earlier, the town manager said that, so let me ask the question outright. Does that plan represent what the planning board approved? Does that picture represent and realizing that the buildings are actually not even on there for what the planning board approved, does it represent?
This is the set of plans that the planning board approved, because the mindset was your board hasn't looked at this easement yet, so they approved what was on the ground. They did sign that.
So that's the approval, okay. So I thought I had a question, what would the setbacks be to the buildings? And obviously, it's moot because the buildings aren't actually going to be where you're suggesting or could not be. Let me ask it another way. If the town were to embrace your redesign of the right-of-way, and the town were to take full advantage of that right-of-way, put up fences, do whatever they want for the full 50-foot width, what does that do to the two properties on each side? How much does it delineate from those two properties, and does it then make those properties non-conforming in square footage to the zoning bylaws?
The easement area would still be part of the lots, so it would not make the lots non-conforming. So your question is, if you put a fence, and maybe you can point this out on the plan, if you put a fence right along, if the town were to fence in its right-of-way, what would we still have enough area to comfortably place houses on those two
And
lots?
still be conforming to the zoning bylaws, square footage, land size?
Yes, and the answer to that second half is yes, because the easement area is still part of the lot. So by fencing off that area, it wouldn't reduce the lot size. The lot size would remain. So I think your question is whether we can place a house on either side of the fenced-in right-of-way, should you choose to fence in the right-of-way.
Okay. You were asked to figure out the impact, and the answer to the drainage structure that you provided was we would lose the right of a 50-foot vehicle pass down to 15 feet. Yeah, you could get a car across the 15-foot, but we wouldn't be able to embrace the full rights that we have now of a 50-foot width.
To clarify, you have 35 feet on the other side of that, and in any respect, if you're going to clear trees and develop that 50-foot right-of-way for whatever use, if you're going to do a road, the town also would have to put in drainage infrastructure. So the fact that we have an outlet pipe there, the town would have to do their own drainage improvements to that and extend that down.
But
So
we would have to remove the current drainage system.
you wouldn't have to remove it, you'd
Okay.
tie right into it.
Well, I'm hearing from the planner that you couldn't drive that lot. You couldn't drive that easement as proposed.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure out to what extent that's a improvement to the position of the town. We'd already talked about the run-to-rise rate. This proposed street in the cul-de-sac, does it meet all the requirements of a public street?
Yes.
So, okay, so this would eventually, more than likely, become a public street and
Yes, it would, and that actually was, there's a comment about that by the planning board chair in the minutes that I gave you. But yes, it's fully intended that this would be an acceptable public way once constructed.
okay. And a comment was made earlier that, okay, if this were to go through, so on and so forth, 30 years from now, the town may decide to embrace creating some sort of access point. I'm on the river committee right now, and one of the problems we have now is right-of-ways. What happens is, commonly, regularly, right-of-ways are, there's about 14 or 15 that go down to the river off of various streets in town. And they're right-of-ways that were granted by the developers who did the work then. And what happens is now, over years, homeowners encroach. They build walls, they put in buildings, they do all sorts of things. And the town, being as consumer-friendly and citizen-friendly as they can, don't try to make someone take down a shed or take down a wall that they built on a right-of-way and work around it. They allow the right-of-way to be skinny down, whatever happens. This is what I envision here. The subdivision goes in, the owners of those two homes get the opportunity to have a nice lush yard, put up a pool, put a shed on the line, things of that nature, and then the town says, oh, we want to go ahead and connect to the rail trail. We think it's a good opportunity at this point, 10, 15, whatever number of years later. And now we have to upset citizens who have no right to that property, to build on that property, who have no right to that property, or they don't embrace the understanding that that right-of-way is the town's right.
Is there a question here, guys?
Yeah, so
Please ask the question.
So I'm getting to the point that I don't know how you make aware the property owners that they can't build, that they can't put structures, they can't put fences, they can't put whatever on there, and maintain the town's rights to that property unencumbered.
I understand the concern and the issue, and I do understand that. And I will say, in this case, the relocation of the easement that we are proposing will make that far less likely to happen than if you leave the right-of-way where it is now, going through someone's front yard and their backyard. We would be able to demarc the right-of-way along the new right-of-way that's proposed as it straddles 25 feet on either side of a lot line. It will, but you're right, people do encroach. They shouldn't. It's a violation. It will certainly be in their deed that they can't do that sort of thing. However, again, that was one of the reasons why the relocation is better for the town, because it will be easier and less difficult for the town to exercise its easement, should it decide to, if it's going between two lots, than in the front yard of one and the backyard of another, where there are most probably going to be those encroachments, no matter how much we try not to have them.
So,
Questions?
just a statement. I appreciate that the developers always want to maximize their opportunity. I get it, I understand it, not a problem. I don't begrudge them that opportunity, but I'm going to agree with David that this is a issue of creation by the developer in the maximization of their opportunity that I don't find is beneficial to the town and in some cases detrimental to the town. So, thank you.
Bill, any questions?
Yeah, I've got an observation, a couple of questions. I wish we had a attorney here, a lawyer here in the building who was unbiased. First of all, David, you are alluding to the fact that this development has already had 7 waivers, 1 variance, and some other things given to them, granted to them favorably.
Yeah, I was corrected on the ZBA issue, but
To the
Okay.
microphone, David.
Is it possible for us to use a modus operandi of a designer or architect from previous jobs that are similar in the same town? Because I have gone through this same process with Carroll Drive behind my house, where I believe every lot in that subdivision that was what was finally built was not on the original plan. And I know one house right particularly behind me, and I know the 200-foot, 100-foot, 35-foot. And Mr. Cameron is a master at placing the corner of a house exactly 35 feet from a wetland. It happens right behind my house. These outfall drainage things, which I was pretty much chastised about a couple of years ago, the water doesn't come out of them, huh? I've got a picture that's pretty interesting of water coming off Carroll Way onto my property, and it came via one of these drainage places. Calculations are sometimes a little wrong when you have a tremendous microburst in the middle of the summer. I'm not in favor of this because I see too many similarities to a project that I have seen the same design done on in another location close by. And I don't know whether that's legal or not, and I've got to be careful. I know David may be able to clue me in on that, but I can't buy this. It's just too much given away.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Dan. I see this, first of all, I have reviewed very carefully the planning department's statement of opposition to this with their reasons. And I find it very scholarly, and I accept it. Second of all, the proponent came here with the position that a Massachusetts law essentially requires the relief that they're requesting. I totally disagree. That is not the law, and it is not properly represented to us. The next thing is, I respect very much the developer. I work the developers and the designer. Intricate, great work of trying to turn the greatest amount of money out of a piece of land. Sure, why wouldn't you? But was the planning board explained as they were presented with this beautiful piece of work, the nuance of the problems that are now being presented to the Board of Selectmen? I don't believe that they were.
I'm not going to abstain.
The next thing is that, as I've said, I think it's highly improper for one board to interfere with the business of another board.
David's given us reasons to oppose it.
Fundamentally, the problem that is placed before us now is to please give us this relief so that we can get the most amount of money out of one of the remaining pieces of land in Danvers. And that's not my problem. I would not support this, and I won't support it.
Thank you. Diane?
Well, I did support this plan at the beginning, and I wanted, knowing that we were going to expand the rail trail access. But being on the rail trail committee, we have already begun raising money. We've had some businesses give us some money. I don't want to spend it on stormwater drains, so you've lost me, I'm going to be honest. And the reason you've lost me is this. It was supposed to be access, all anybody's talked about is this is access to the rail trail. Well, there is already access to the rail trail that I don't have to put in a new storm drain to. So I would love to do this, but I can't cost the town money. We've been through this with Walls down on West Street, where then you give it back to us. I'm against that. So unless you can do this, keeping the easement the way it is, I just can't put cost to the town. That's what I fight, is external costs I'll never support. So I think that you, and you went in knowing that that was the easement. I just don't understand why it took 2 years to get to us. I just don't understand why it takes so long. It sounds like it should have come to us first, in my opinion, but I'm not going to support it to move this now that I've been told that I can't drive trucks over it. lived on the rail trail, and the trucks that go on it are ambulance and rescue truck, electric trucks. They weigh a lot, and if they cannot go over this storm drain moved, then I can't support this. So I guess I just don't understand how it took so long to get here, and that I had to get all educated over the last couple of days reading all of this. I would have liked to have had a little more time, but I thank David for explaining to me the cost to the town. That's where I'm stuck right now.
Thank you. Nancy?
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you just received that memo, in fact, I didn't get a copy of David's memo until I came down today at 4:30 and grabbed a copy for myself. So I think it might be helpful if we all have a little bit more time to review that and for us to be able to respond to it and respond to your comments and give Scott an opportunity to address the issue of whether you can drive over this and what kind of improvements might need to be made. I don't agree with everything that was in the memo that I picked up today at 4:30, and perhaps it might be helpful for us. It certainly would be helpful for us to be able to respond to those items, and it might be informative for you to have that response. So we would certainly be amenable if the board would be to give us some more time, come back at your next meeting, and respond to your comments as well as others that we might hear before you complete this for this evening, so that it may not change your mind, but it may give you some additional information. And I know it's a lot. It's a lot to consider, and it's a lot to try and understand.
May I speak in?
Yes.
David did mention in his memo, this issue with respect to the easement was raised by staff in December of 2018, and the applicant chose to address it in the definitive portion of the project, which is toward the end. So this is not a novel issue that arose after the planning board completed its review. I'm going to provide a general comment at the end of the meeting about, I think, what we've all learned from this particular project. But this was an issue that was raised more than a year ago by planning staff because they recognized this, but we were, as Mr. Fields referenced, 7 waivers from the planning board, discretion from the Concom, and a stop at the ZBA along the way, and the approvals are all in place. But the question before you tonight is it wise to relocate the easement?
Thank you. So, board members, we have 2 choices. One is to react to the request or to table it.
Mr. Chairman, my preference is to react to the request based on the fact that my decision is not just on the buildable, cost of building or changing making it passable for vehicles in the new configuration. I have a lot of concerns and a lot of issues. And I appreciate the planning board asked thorough questions. At that point, it ended. Their approval was not hinged on this, and they don't have that authority. That's ours. So I have a number of issues, and even mitigating what it would cost to build that small thing won't change my decision making. Thank you.
Mitigating building what?
What it would cost to build that newly offered you know, changing the drainage, changing the, you know, if we were to embrace this, and then the town were to want to build on there, make it passable, make it accessible to the rail trail, what the cost would be, and what you'd have to do to the existing drainage substructure. Even if you mitigated that, and it didn't cost the town anything to do that, it wouldn't change my other points that I've made and my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. So my comment is, it's unfortunate you didn't wrestle with this issue early on in the process. I think you had the opportunity and chose not to wrestle with it and waited till it got to this point. So again, board members, is there a motion to table or a motion to react to the request?
I make a motion that we deny the request as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
So I'm just somebody that likes to be a little thorough. I guess I need to be, in order to vote, I would like to ask, I guess, why weren't they here earlier? You're saying that
Well,
they went through it, and that's fine.
There was a
And this-
request to come before this board before all the approvals were in place, and I discussed that with Attorney DeLuca, and we agreed that that was not a prudent step. And I can speak now to sort of what we've learned from this project, or I can save that for the
Save it,
under
please.
manager comment.
So we have a motion, it's been seconded. Any other comments?
I'd like to comment on it.
Please.
If Diane is asking for more time for her decision-making process, I will respect that, but I have seconded the motion and recommend that the thing be denied tonight, except out of courtesy to her, if she would be assisted with more time.
Well, and I'd like to say that I have in no way support anything that costs the town any money. I will never support that. So, but I don't know how I feel because I'm not sure of the full process. So whether they come back, my question is going to be not from them, but, and I know you want to wait till after, but I'd like to hear, I would like to hear about the process more. I'm a selectman, I am not a planner, nor do I have the expertise that they have. And
We have a motion that's
this
been
is a lot of money,
seconded.
and I want to make sure if I vote no, that I am not depriving somebody of their livelihood. That's how I feel about this.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome.
I'm not giving any tax advice anymore. That's right. That's right.
David did a good job with that.
Sure did.
Why do you need so
Is it your last one?
I don't know. I needed to be educated
I mean, they put up with this bullshit out of the division. Unbelievable what they did.
No, not an expert.
We haven't got telephone poles there, huh?
Next meeting.
Oh, really? You wait till I'm no longer on a board. No. No, I'm not.
These maps of Danvers, the sidewalk,
Thank
I'll add
you.
this to my collection on my wall.
Good for Nancy to get boxed behind the ears once in a while. Just brought back to reality. Just my humble opinion, okay? The camera fucked me over. Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, there's a pothole on Nickel Street.
All right, the room is getting
Snow
smaller
plowing.
and smaller. The board will hear an update by the DPW director regarding sidewalk, snow clearing, and other items of interest.
If the rain had been snow today, this would be a much higher stakes conversation tonight.
I know, jeez.
We all remember
David.
Steve's first year here.
You're not allowed to use the S word.
Yeah, I know.
Can't wait for this.
I'm here tonight, and I also have our new Director of Operations. I don't know if the board knows.
Yay.
Richard Sousa from town, lives over on Cole Road and Danvers resident. And with my new vocabulary word tonight, I believe he's a very fungible individual that can do many things for the town and public works. I think I've used the word right, Judge Mills, but.
Think about it.
And I mean that all due respect. I just love new vocabulary words. We last talked about sidewalk plowing back in 2011. Some issues came up about adding new sidewalks. Should we add new sidewalks? Should we expand our services, change our services? This time, in talking with our manager, also came up with what is the town legally obligated to do? We've done some work with Attorney DeLuca and looked into that very question about the requirements. What do we have to do? At this time, what we got from Attorney DeLuca was that the town does have an obligation to maintain the highways and townways. We need to provide those public roadways reasonably safe and convenient for travelers. However, there is not Massachusetts statute that says we have to clear the sidewalks. We're left to our own devices to clear the sidewalks according to our policies, is what we found and what Attorney DeLuca provided to us. And on the front page, it says that the municipality may devise its own laws to compel residents to clear the sidewalks. That's a choice for the community. Should we want to do that, have people clear the walks, we could do that. At this time, the town has chosen not to do that right now. We have not enforced residents or abutters to clear their own sidewalks.
Just for clarification,
Sure.
David, if you don't mind. Often this bubbles up on various social media, so on and so forth. Is there a state law that requires people to clear sidewalks in front of their homes?
No, that right now, the Massachusetts laws are clear on that the town needs to clear, the town needs to clear the roads.
Right.
And there is a state law that says the municipality may devise its own laws.
Okay, but
So
there's nothing
under Chapter
compelling
40,
homeowners.
we can devise our own laws that say abutters and homeowners have to do it. But right now, we don't have that.
I just want to make the distinction about what the law says the town has to do versus is there a law that says the homeowner has to do something?
Not unless the town has come up
Okay,
with its own laws.
Thank you.
Under Chapter 4. I'm not sure if laws is the right word, but it's how Attorney DeLuca provided it. So the bylaw that the town does have is that no one can place snow out into our roadways, into our public ways. You can't cause snow to go out there, can't cause trash, refuse, other materials like that. And recently, the town upgraded their fines on that for the second and multiple offenses on it. We do have issues during the winter of private contractors pushing snow around. That snow could end up on a neighbor's lawn, in someone's sidewalk. Up to this point, the DPW, we've enforced it both by ourselves and with the police department helping us to go out and talk to the snowplow contractors, talk to the residents, and somehow cause that snow to get pushed back. And we've had homeowners cancel their snowplow contractors, find someone different. We've had contractors that stopped plowing in areas of town because we had to follow up on it. Each year, we'll get a new batch of contractors that will try to plow snow across the road. We'll try to plow at places they shouldn't, plow it into a neighbor's yard, and we have to get out there and force it. Up to this time, we have not used the fine system to enforce it. We've actually gone out there and talked to the homeowners, talked to the plow drivers, and worked with them to get them to comply. In the worst case scenario, we've actually caused the snow to get back where it came from, back in that person's driveway. So that's, up to this point, to take some effort. However, it's effective when we get out there and deal with it. We do have the fine system that's been approved by the town to fall back on. And obviously, when we talk to the abutters, we use it, we talk about the fine system. However, we try to just get people to comply. And each year, it's a different group of individuals and different group of plow drivers. On the town sidewalk plowing routes, on the sidewalk plowing routes that we have, the map I provided to you is the routes that have the plow routes that have been developed by previous boards of selectmen in town. on which sidewalks we should plow. This has been established working with the Board of Selectmen. We have equipment and budget to plow this 50 miles of sidewalk on an average winter after every snowstorm. If you look at the routes that we plow, there's a theme to it. We plow the major roads that have a lot of traffic, and we're providing a walking route to each of the schools. And then we're also doing a lot of plowing right around our downtown, Maple Street and High Street. At various times, we've been requested to adjust these plowing routes. We've taken that very seriously because we know adding routes on is expensive, it takes manpower, it takes equipment. The procedure that we've followed is that when we get a request for a sidewalk to be added to our plow routes, first we talk to the school department. They talk to the principal, they talk to the crossing guards. Are there students? Is there a whole lot of students walking on a certain road or on a certain side of the road? Should we make an adjustment to accommodate students? Or is there some other compelling reason why we should suddenly plow a new sidewalk that's in the matter of safety? We're always thinking of safety when we're doing that. There has been a couple cases where we've changed. It could be in a street, we plow one side of the street because small children always lived on this side, and suddenly they grew up and now the children are living on the other side of the street. We've changed them before. We've had small pieces. After we talk to the school department, we get their recommendation. We talk to the police department. We've at times talked to the traffic advisory committee to get input. And then we've brought recommendations back to the Board of Selectmen if we should add to or change the sidewalk plowing routes, which we're willing to do at any time. Always willing to look at it and make it better. There's been many times when we've been approached by someone that plows the sidewalk in front of their home. They might have a snow blower and they do it, and they want their neighbor to do it too. They feel like the whole street should all get together and use their snow blowers and open up the sidewalk. So we've had to look into it and think long and hard. Should the town require that? And we've talked to a lot of people about it. And one thing that we found is that it'd be very hard to police that. If all of a sudden, if there was a street and 3 people were snow blowing their sidewalk and it was nice, and then one person refused, now we have to go chase that person down. Or if we got to the end, now we got the corner and we have a 20-foot pile of snow. Well, myself and Richard, we went through and plowed through, say, a foot of snow with our snow blowers. Now we get to this giant pile at the end. Who's going to get us around the corner? In logistics of trying to get homeowners to clear the sidewalks becomes very hard. When we have heavy snowstorm on the sidewalks, plowing sidewalks becomes a great challenge, mostly because of the corners. You may have seen, we send the snow blowers down the sidewalks or the plows, and we have front-end loaders actually come in and dig out the corners so that we can get the children around the side corners. We have to move a lot of snow. It's a difficult project. So that's what we've found to be the difficulty of trying to get people to mandate that they plow their own sidewalks in front of their home. The last thing we looked at, and we're working on the update of the town's ADA and handicap disability plan, and as we work on improvements to that every year. Every year we're making more handicap ramps, we're making more places handicap accessible. We all know every time we do a building, we do a lot of improvements to the building. And we looked at, was there an ADA requirement for us to do sidewalks? That was the last check we wanted to make. And what we found, working with Attorney DeLuca, was that the Handicap Access Board looks at the snow as a temporary impediment. So because snow is only there temporarily and goes away, there's no requirement that the town make the sidewalks handicap accessible during or right after a snowstorm. Which triggers me back to, if we did the last thing on mandating sidewalks, this is a timeliness issue. We all know that we need to get the sidewalks cleared quickly. We need to get children back to school, people want to walk downtown, get to the bus stops, that type of thing. And not only do we need to get them open, but we need to get them open quickly or expediently. One last thing, and then I'll wrap up and take question, is when we've had the giant winters, say 2015, 36 inches of snow, we've had to go into that's when we've changed these routes. We've gone into what I'd call an emergency situation. Because there's so much snow and it's going to take so long to clear the sidewalks, in that case, we have an emergency plan where we work with the schools, and instead of working on our normal routes that we get around 4 to 6 hours, we start at the schools and move outwards. We put a crew at each school, we move outwards, and then when we get enough of the sidewalks plowed that we think the students can safely walk to school, then we open schools back up. So we have open schools that not all the sidewalks were plowed. We announced that, we've told people. However, we get the most important ones around the school open, and then we open schools. And I'd be glad to take questions.
So, David, if you were in a debate
Yep, sir.
and you drew a card, let's say Mr. Souza drew the card to argue in favor of plowing sidewalks, how would he respond?
So the argument to get that we're New Englanders, we're homeowners, we should do our civic duty, we should plow the walk in front of our house. Just like I should shovel this hydrant in front of my house, clear that hydrant out, my civic duty.
So why
I
don't
should
we
do it.
educate people to do that?
Because it's one thing that can do it, but when if I did in front of my house, and even myself with the resources I have, my private resources, I mean, when I get to that corner and there's a giant banking
I
pushed
don't
up.
get that. I don't understand what you're saying.
So at intersections, we clear a large area of pavement.
The town.
The town does, and we make big bankings on
You
the
do.
corners.
You pile all up in the
We
corner, so
pile it
you
all
can't see
up.
it getting out of around the corner.
So in order for someone to get that sidewalk out to that handicap ramp, someone's got to go through that banking to open it up. And instead of the snow being this deep, it's this deep that we got to go through. I know I personally don't have the private equipment, my own, to get through that banking, so I think a lot of other residents wouldn't also. And then the other, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be talking about in favor of, but yeah, the civic duty and that, but I easily get transposed right into the difficulties that I've thought long and hard about how I enforce it. And how could we get everybody to comply and have it work?
Thank you. David, any questions?
Well, two questions. David, do you have any particular recommendation to the board with respect to the modification or establishment of more or different snow policies?
My only recommendation is to continue for us to welcome and take in requests for sidewalks and for changes, and we'll analyze them, and ones that have merit, we'll bring them back to this board for consideration.
And the only other comment that I want to make is that I used to be able to clean my sidewalk after like 11 bouts with a cardiologist and age. I can no longer do that, you know? And I think that there are a lot of people in my age group, especially like down around parks, you know, as the Back Bay and other areas that people don't have the personal strength or the money to hire private kids. And now the kids don't seem to want to shovel anymore anyhow. It's hard to find a kid, you know?
Bill?
I'm very glad to see this map out here. It makes a lot of sense. I just have one kind of a reminder. We had a resident who was living in a special house come before us 2 years ago requesting that she get her sidewalk plowed from where she lives downtown. She's got a wheelchair, and I think it was a very reasonable request, and I thought that we had accommodated. In fact, I talked to her afterwards, and she said that they had accommodated her to a certain degree afterwards, but I wonder if that shouldn't be in a plan like this. And I realize that those kind of residents may change from time to time, but the housing was made by the housing authority to enhance handicapped accessible people to live in that house, and then she's locked in her house. She can't get out and go downtown, which is only 2 blocks away. And I think it really should be a special example of where we go above and beyond, which we very easily can after all these routes are done. And you have an excellent machine for the square, the slow machine with the snow blower in the front. Does a nice wide job. It makes a good clean cut. The Bombardiers leaves a lot to be desired when they barrel ass through the neighborhoods and you got embankments occurring all the time. But I think that we should make sure that there are provisions made for these people who are special, who need to have access to their residence.
So Bill, it's not reflected here, but that was the type of recommendation David Jefferson, it was incorporated into our...
And she was very appreciative of it. I know that. I talked to her about it last year.
All set?
Yep.
Diane?
I didn't mean to laugh at you saying you were going to put the snow back in the driveway, but I thought that was a pretty good plan. I'm all set. I think you guys do a great job, and if you need to vote for some fines, if that helps you, I'd certainly support it.
Sure.
Gardner?
So, a quick question. Are the routes that you've outlined, and I think the black ones answer my question, is it one side of the street or both sides?
So actually, it's a combination. Many of the streets, it is one side. You'll see, it's hard, if I blew this up bigger, you'd see that some of the streets have both sides plowed and some have one side plowed.
Okay, I can see the
See the
black
arrow?
one obviously has both sides.
See the little arrows?
Yeah, that's both sides, and if,
Okay.
yeah, there's a number of streets in here that are both sides.
Okay. The other question, I think, actually kind of building off what Bill had suggested, can we have a post-sidewalk, so obviously the roadway's number one, sidewalks number two, can we have a third wave which goes to key intersections where there are curb cuts and clear those major bankings? Okay, and I think I'm building off what Bill said. If we had a, I don't know how, I don't want to phrase it in a, if people said, I'm an ADA compliant person and I need to get out of and I can't, my neighbors are good, but we've got this 12-foot mound based on the town plowing the intersection, could we consider a wave of going out, bucket loading just the curb cut, not doing the whole sidewalk, that's still the responsibility of the homeowner, but at least relieve them of the condition you're talking about of doing my 6 or 8 inches of snow and then running into a wall that the town created at that intersection?
So, two things. Part of our snow operation, and I have the list in my folder, is our crossing guard locations and crosswalk locations. We have a whole list of those, which we go out as part of our sidewalk program. There's a whole list of those that are important ones we do. Other intersections and areas such as that around town, which are, we deem safety issues, we catalog those, they come in and we write them down. After the storm's over, we get some rest, we delegate crews out to do road widening and clearing safety issues, just like that. We'll clear ends of intersections, we'll widen certain places out. We'll do that as much as time allows during our normal workday after the storm.
So is there an opportunity for a neighbor to say, or a citizen to say, I live in a place that I think it's that kind of condition?
Yep, they can call Public Works after the
Okay.
storm, say we have an unsafe condition, and we'll catalog, we'll take a look at it, and if it makes sense, we'll try to fit it in.
Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you, Mr.
Good,
Chairman.
thank you. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think the next issue, we had Mr. Souza was going to talk about our trenching program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the opportunity. This came from Steve as far as some updates and issues that were identified, I believe, by some board members of certain trenches that wanted us to take a look at and address. So the first
So
piece...
if I may, for the folks at home, just tell us what a trench is.
Sure. So...
And where are they?
Yep. So that is actually a piece I wanted to sort of clarify with the board. So trenches in the roadway are permitted with a roadway opening permit. We do have a trench permit that the street division does carry out, and that would be for a private homeowner, maybe doing a utility line on their property, where they should pull a trench permit. That's related to Jackie's Law, which was brought upon Massachusetts in 2009. 10 years prior, I believe her name was Jackie Moore. There was a contractor working in her backyard, and the contractor finished up for the day, didn't secure the trench, and her brother and I think a friend entered the trench, and the trench actually collapsed, where the two, the brother and the friend, were able to get out, and Jackie didn't make it. So Massachusetts indoctrinated the Jackie's Law in 2009. So what I'm really talking about with you all is the road opening permit that has to deal with contractors cutting into our roadways, and then they backfill, and it ends up settling. And, we have all these trenches, roadway trenches, where they're unfavorable, where you drive over it and you bounce over those locations. So just wanted to clarify that there is the trench permit. The questions that came to me were more regarding contractor work in roadways who received a road opening permit as well. They go hand in hand with each other. If you get a roadway opening permit, you do get a trench permit. So the question was, there was a few locations that were identified and they wanted us to respond to. So those locations have all been repaired. We did have a contractor come and make those repairs. That being said, the crux of that is our roadway opening permit is good for a year. Basically, if we identify that a trench is insufficient, where within a year, currently within a year, we can respond back to that contractor, and they would have to come and make a repair at their expense. So when I first got here, one of the goals that David set for me was he wanted me to take a look at the road opening permit and see how we can better, implement that permit, why contractors pull these permits. So I've been working on that as far as what I'm going to be doing as far as update that, bring it up to more current standards. And what I've identified is, for the most part, the permit itself is in pretty good shape. I may extend, and I'd have to come to this board, the 12-month to actually an 18-month warranty that the contractors would have to give. But what I've found is it really it's on our end where we need to be inspecting these trenches better as far as when the contractor finishes up for the day, backfills, and adds asphalt to that location. If we have a better inspection program where we're satisfied with the way they are finishing these trenches, then that right there will set us in a better direction where they shouldn't fail as much as they do. That being said, the enforcement piece of calling them back, if it's 6, 7, right now 10 months later, calling them and saying you should get back and fix this because it was settled, come take a look at it, and enforcing that piece where I think we were lacking in staying on top of the trenches that we have throughout town. So I actually have recently pulled our list that we have for the last year, and we've given it to one of the foremen in the street department to go and start taking a look at these trenches that we have permits for within the year that we still have teeth to actually go back and have them address them if we find that they're an issue. So starting backwards from a year and then continuing the program, it'll be more efficient and have these better inspections, I think will improve the roadways.
Do you think it might help to have the contractor put a bond up that they can get back after the year?
Yeah, yes, there is, they have to provide insurance, certificate of insurance, and there is a $5,000 surety that is applied. So that already does exist. It's the enforcement piece. It's really circling back and identifying these trenches that, we feel that are unfit.
Thank you. Diane, any questions?
No, I actually, some years ago, I don't know if I sent it off to David, College Pond, and you're right, they do, and then they settle.
Right.
And it really is, so I didn't realize that we could call them back, but.
Yeah, we do. Currently, it's a year, and I'm working to see if we should change that to 18 months and get.
Come before us and ask for 18 months, please.
I would have to.
Yeah,
Yep, no, I would have to.
Just do it.
Yep, so,
Sure.
and that's, I'm hoping to have this new, I don't want to call it a new program, because the program's really already in place, but the new permit and any new criteria that we change, hopefully for the construction season, which starts April 15th for us. So I think sooner than later, I'll be back, checking in to see if I could change a couple minor details in that.
And would this also be like, I don't want to talk about developments anymore, but if a development went in 18 months later?
In a public roadway, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And what if we don't own the road yet, as we still don't own some of our roads?
So it would be accepted.
Yeah, so the subdivisions,
Yeah.
which are our town, Stephen King oversees the construction of the subdivisions. Those are private property until the town accepts the roadway or they get finished. Stephen King, there's a bond set for the contractor to get those done. However, the timetable on when a subdivision gets done is up to them working with the planning board and those approvals. Our street opening program will only cover that piece of the subdivision that's out in the public way, the accepted public way. The rest of the subdivision has to be covered under subdivision control law and the rules with the planning board.
Thank you.
All set? Gardner?
Not knowing the process, is there a identified standard process that contractors have to follow for fill?
So, yep, part of the package, the new package that I want to hand out, will have some Mass DOT specs.
So it'll say the first layer has to be this grade of soil or sand or gravel or whatever, and layered on top. So it's, and you have to do asphalt of this depth, so on and so forth.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And, okay, great, thanks. Just exactly what I was looking for. And speaking not trenching on private property, but trenching across a roadway, what are the requirements that the contractor has to follow? And here's a couple of questions, just a couple. Do they have to call DigSafe? Do they have to have a police detail? Do they have to, if someone asks, they have to show a permit like a building permit would be shown? What are the safety requirements? Do they have to put those trenching
barricades or
barricades that you see?
So
and I'll tell you why I'm asking. So just so you can tailor your answer.
Yep.
4 or 5 months ago, someone came up East Street, took a right onto Fellows Street, and almost went into an open trench.
Right.
The contractor put a couple of cones out. Didn't have a police detail, and when I asked about it, lit me up like a Christmas tree because who am I to ask him? And so I'm wondering what the responsibility of the contractor is to ensure public safety.
So that is within the permit, and they should, I have an attendee the whole time that trench is open. If they're going to leave it, it should be plated, for the time that they're gone, if it's overnight or even just 10 minutes, it only takes that 10 minutes. So there is regulations, and we even speak to them a bit in our permit, saying that, these trenches need to be left properly, left as the roadway is.
Yeah, I just want to add one little thing, is that obviously they're covered by OSHA laws. There's laws regulate how they have to do it. If we observe them doing something unsafe, or it gets reported to us and we check it out, we will immediately stop their work, or it's in a public way, we'll stop them from working and ask them to fix it. If they don't make it safe, either us or the police department will temporarily make it safe, and then we'll back charge them for that service.
And when you say attendee, could it be someone the contractor hired on either side of the trench? Does that have to be a police detail?
Well, for the attendee, that is the, overseeing the hole itself.
Okay.
I think in most cases, they should have a detail if they need to trench across an entire roadway where they can only take half of the roadway at a time.
Yep.
But they should always have an attendee with, overseeing the work being done in the trench. And at all times, there should be a detail if it's deemed by the streets division to have one.
We let the police department, they designate when police details are needed. So the police, they say when a police detail is needed. As far as traffic control, the signage, cones, barricades, that stuff, we have a manual, the MUTCD, that regulates what that needs to be, what they need for signage, advanced signage. That we can enforce right out of the book, but the police details are enforced by the police department.
Okay, because one of the first things I learned as a selectman is there's a vast difference between could, should, and shall, or will. and should, doesn't compel them to do it. I just want to make sure that, I want to know that it's safe that someone coming up a side street, we might have a side street that's not well-traveled. It's not like you're doing Elliott Street. Sure. But there should be, cones 10 feet in front of the hole is not sufficient.
You know what, you just triggered a thought, and I'm not sure, Rich has probably thought of it, but do we have a thing on the form where we've checked to see if a police detail is required or not? Or do we make a requirement for them to call the police department and see that? We'll need to think about how do we incorporate that within our authority, to make sure they check that card.
The permit does have if a detail is necessary or not. So that's a question that we ask them. They don't tell us if a detail is, and then we could talk with the police as far as do they deem this project necessary for a detail.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Thank you. One of the things about police details, it's a matter of how many jobs are in town. Sometimes there's not enough police to man all the jobs, and it's amazing what jobs can be done without a police detail. And I think that more police officers have been killed during street details looking in a trench than they have in law enforcement trying to take care of criminals. But sidelight. I had a dilemma today, David. Trenches. I applaud the contractor who has already started Hobart Street with the gas lines, but guess what happened today? They had two crews working, one up by the First Church of Highland School, one down by Pine Street. I want to ask you, how the hell do I get to my house? Both sides were blocked off. I found a way, I know a way, in the back way, but it's just, they're very aggressive. They're doing a good job putting that pipe down real fast. They're really lucky. They appreciate the fact that weather was cooperating with them really well, and they got in several sections of the gas pipe today, I know that. But they had Hobart Street blocked off in two different locations, and there was about 30 or 40 of us in the middle that would have a difficult time getting home.
Yeah, the town engineer and I had a discussion about this at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The gas company is doing well. They're following all the requirements of the trench. However, they need to come see us before they do any road closures or any detours and have us approve them. And they haven't been doing that piece. So we're going to correct that starting tomorrow.
Just some humble feedback from them. Very
Absolutely
quiet.
correct. We
And
just
thank you for
today.
starting the street already. It's good.
What's that?
Yep.
David?
And very, very well informed, and I'm comfortable that you've got it under control.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. David, anything else? Updates?
I guess the only other thing is that, to mention that we have the tour of the new Canal Street property for Thursday evening this week. And the board, we've invited the Water and Sewer Board, we've invited the Finance Committee, I believe. And so we have the building is essentially complete inside. The furniture hasn't been put in, but you get to see a nice professional space that the Water and Sewer Divisions are going to be able to work out of.
So will I be able to get there, access it on High Street without a backup?
No promises there.
So where are we with High Street in the Mass DOT?
So the manager and I have talked about High Street. He's brought a number of your concerns to our attention. We thought the first step on High Street would be to have a workshop session with representatives from Mass DOT to talk about where the intersection is. We've contacted them.
Who else is going to be at that meeting?
There'll be it'll be the state traffic engineer, the state traffic signal engineer, the district highway director from District 4, and the assistant district highway director from District 4.
Who will be there representing the town that can jump up and down? You're too nice a guy.
There is a board. There is a board for that.
What board is that?
Well,
Well, we had
At this one, yeah, so the town manager, myself, the town engineer, Richard, we'll have planning, we'll have staff at this meeting.
Have you written the Secretary of Transportation about this issue?
I've not.
Mr. Chairman.
We invited the Lieutenant Governor to come and see how this is affecting us in this town and surrounding communities.
So the first step with meeting with them is information gathering to see what
I
is.
just gave you the information.
Well, what we want to do is they're coming out, doing updated traffic counts, looking at the signals, looking at seeing if there's anything else we can do to that existing intersection to make traffic flow better. That's what their first step is, to do that.
When will that happen?
So they're doing it right now. Since we've talked to them, they're doing it in preparation for a workshop with our staff here in town. Following that, we'll see what we can come up with. On Liberty Street, we came up with things A, B, and C on what we could do. We have talked to them about redoing the intersection. At the workshop, we'll talk about how do we go about pushing the redevelopment of that intersection. I think we all know in order to redo the intersection, we need more lanes of traffic under the bridge. That means we need the bridge. That means we need to lift up a piece of Main Line 128. It becomes a very expensive project. At the workshop, we need to sit down with Mass DOT and talk about how do we get that project pushed along in the funding list. We have a lot of obstacles in that funding list. We need to find out how we can push it through.
You're talking the 128 bridge?
Yeah, the 128 bridge.
Left-hand turns against traffic, the most simple thing there is. Call the circular routes that were developed in the 1930s work great. This diamond intersections is a bunch of bullshit. You can't cover traffic against heavy traffic like that all the time on left-hand turns. The cloverleaf is the way to go, and they didn't want to do it down. They had it down there for years, from 1939 to what, 2017 or so?
Well, at the workshop session, we're going to be bringing up all different kinds of traffic pattern intersections on what they can do. We do believe when we look at all those different options on how to circulate traffic, the bridge keeps coming back as a great impediment. I can't get away from that, and we're going to see what we have options, how we can work around that existing bridge and make traffic the best. And then what do we do about funding a real improvement to that intersection, making it really much better?
Thank you. Anybody else, any comments? Nope. Okay, you all set?
Yep.
Thank you for staying so late.
I would just remind the board, we had a similar sit-down with the DOT several years ago, and board members did attend that. We had 2 board members sit in on that meeting. What David was trying to say is that we certainly have the ability to go straight to the commissioner or the governor's office, but we also have to maintain relationships with our representatives in the field. And so step 1 is to coordinate that sit-down with the DOT team. It's been put on their radar. They don't have the authority to accelerate the funding for that, but we need to start there, and I think the delegation is already aware of this issue. The senator and the representative are aware that this has come back around. So we're actively scheduling that when it's on the calendar, or if right now, if the board wanted to offer 2 selectmen to sit in on that meeting and report back, we'd be happy to work around schedules.
I would offer up myself as a...
Okay.
I'd offer myself also.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, I got kicked off.
Town manager will report to the board on various items of
Kicked off the
interest.
committee.
Mr. Town Manager.
I'll start with the conversation, since I believe Mr. Fields has stuck around because I mentioned I would be circling back to the topic we were discussing earlier. But I want to share some thoughts on the discussion we had tonight. The first of which is that the easement we're talking about was granted to the town in, I think, 1915.
Steve, I'm sorry.
The easement we're discussing tonight was granted to the town 105 years ago. And there's a reason there was no development proposed there until 2018. It was a complicated project, as evidenced by the fact that this project required 7 waivers from the planning board, a trip to the ZBA, and as Mr. Fields alluded to, broad discretion from the Conservation Commission. So one note I just want to make up front is the zoning that was just approved by town meeting a week and a half ago includes language that would allow a future developer to identify those back parcels, and rather than try to develop them and extend utilities and roadways into undisturbed open space, they could buy the rights to those parcels in order to qualify for a density bonus in the new districts that were just approved. It's a logical way to allow the homeowners to capture some value for their property without resulting in this example, I think I would remind the board, and this has been approved, so it's really sort of a non-issue at this point. It will be an issue. At last year's town meeting, the town meeting was asked to approve $65,000 in funding to repair a 2-foot high, 200-foot long retaining wall on an upland. What the Conservation Commission approved in this project is a 400-foot long, 10-foot high roadway through wetlands that will when it's time to repair it, require DEP permitting at a cost to the town that none of us would hazard a guess at this point. Could be 40 years from now. How that decision was reached was somewhat troubling. And to bring it back around to the project we're talking about, I think this is, certainly there was some frustration from the team here tonight. There's certainly been some frustration, I think, with the boards and with staff as well. And I think we can take this project, I would say it's been a case study for us. It's something we're going to talk about at the Land Use Summit, which is to say, projects shouldn't require 9 or 10 considerations to get built. And I think we have identified that we need to do a better job intaking these projects. That'll be a slight change in practice in town. With Mr. Fields and Mr. Henry on staff, and I would also mention Josh Morris and with Georgia back, we have the plan, and Francine Butler. I don't want to leave Francine out because she's the glue that holds them all together. We have an opportunity to reevaluate the way we've taken these projects in. The best term I've come up with is shopping projects around to boards, and I think we want to require a little bit more work up front from the proponents to show us exactly what's being proposed, so that we can engage the chairs of these boards or the boards themselves up front to talk about what's coming. And I think it would result in a lot less frustration all around. So that's an indirect way of discussing the issue that was before you tonight. But to the point that Mr. Fields is making in his memo, there are a lot of different ways that this particular easement could have been proposed to be relocated, some of which would have resulted in a much better long-term outcome for the town, but that simply wasn't what was proposed. But on a moving forward basis, I think we've identified this as an opportunity to sort of reevaluate how we take these in, and I think that will result in better processes for both the boards themselves, because they'll have a clearer picture, even those areas that are outside their jurisdiction, and staff as they prepare recommendations for these boards, and certainly for the applicants, who will have a clear idea of what the process looks like.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Through you, just in general, when this land use summit happens, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be appropriate for the board to, we do a lot of crafting of policy, we do have a budget policy, we have a debt policy, we have a lot of policies, and I would not want to tell the planning board or the zoning board of appeals how to render their job, how to evaluate an applicant, so on and so forth, but I would like the opportunity to make some general policy statements, not unlike Diane had suggested, do no harm to the town. So if the policy statement is, your approval should consider when the town ends up taking responsibility for this roadway or whatever it is, what's going to be the effect on permitting, so on and so forth. Is it going to harm the town in the future to accept something approved now? The other one I would strongly advocate for is, and I think this falls in line with David's comments, there are only 3 reasons the Zoning Board of Appeals can approve an application. Soil conditions, topology, and land shape. That's it. So I would like to, and not profitability, not I can't do it unless I have a 3rd floor, I can't afford it. I would like clarity. I would like clarity, and I know it's in their minutes, but why is this topology? Why is this a soil condition? Why is this one of those 3 reasons? Because I think what people hear is, I can't afford it. I can't afford to do it unless I have 10 apartments. Not our issue, and not the ZBA's purview to approve based on profitability or anything other than those 3 conditions. So I guess I would like to ask the chairman if we could consider before the land use, crafting some selectmen direction, policy direction, broad policy direction.
So my comment, Eric Gardner, was I'd rather have the land use meeting to get some feedback to craft some policy that would help, because I'm not prepared to write policy to govern planning and ZBA at this time. I think this is a good learning experience that we can use as guidance going forward.
Because I often hear from both boards, we wish we knew what the selectmen wanted of us.
Well, I will say this. At the MMA meeting, there was a group of selectmen telling some of their best practices in one community, their boards speak to each other.
Right, we used to have that years ago.
And sometimes it's over coffee, sometimes it's formalized. Communication is the key. Thank you. David?
I just wanted to thank the board and the town manager for having me here this evening and for hearing me out. I know the memo provided was pretty dense. I think in the future, if we have matters like this going forward, if there's less of a compressed time to put that together, it can be more plain language. But if you all have any suggestions or recommendations or things you'd like to see us cover at the Land Use Summit or otherwise, I can come give updates on whatever you'd like. Just contact my office and let us know.
The board, individual members are more than welcome to submit some ideas to the town manager for
I just want to
consideration.
thank David for saying that. It is plain language. I have to talk plain language for 4 months. And that's exactly what I needed tonight, was you got to bring it down to my level. Sure. I don't study zoning. I try not to, anyways.
All right, thank you. Mr.
David, I want to
Manager.
thank you for coming too. It meant a lot to a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your read on this subject, and it made my decision easier.
Thanks.
Before he leaves, may I make a comment, Dan?
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that troubled me most about the presentation tonight was the suggestion that the town council was on the proponent's team, that the town council made a recommendation of how they should proceed. That is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
The suggestion that the planning board should make some recommendation to this board as to how we exercise our lawful is outrageous. The fact that I think that David's memorandum, I've been a lawyer, you've heard it before, 51 years, okay? That was a really scholarly presentation. But it's almost like in enforcing the town, or in speaking to the town's best interests, he's up against the town councils on the other team, the planning boards on the other team, the Conservation Commission. That's not how it was when I practiced 25 years ago. We had solid people on those boards who followed the law all the time. I have read zoning board decisions, not all of them, because they make me so upset, over the last 10 years, rendered by the Danvers Zoning Board of Appeals, that in a million years would not stand up in court. And among other things, the statute says that when there is a decision on a variance made on the basis of shape, soil, or topography, the special conditions that only allow a variance, the reasons for that must be clearly stated. They're not stated, and they haven't been for 10 years. It drives me nuts. And so I think this talking between boards, or going to get some board to get on board, give me a letter so that I can take this to the ZBA so that they'll know that you're on, that is outrageous. And I don't know what to do about that except tell you tonight that it troubles me deeply.
If I could tie this all together with a bow, I think what I'm hearing are the arguments for scheduling the Land Use Summit so that we can talk about, and I guess I'll take a step to the side. These are all volunteers who give up their time. Every one of them, to a person, wants to make sure that the decisions they're making leave the town in a better place than they found it. And I think that's the starting point for the summit, is to we have had a lot of turnover on our boards. We have new staff in the engineering department and the planning department, and it's an opportunity to kind of reset. We just passed some landmark zoning, which is going to shape the future of the downtown. So it's a perfect opportunity to start this conversation, to get everybody back on the same page. So I think I've had a sneak preview of some of the things that Aaron and David want to bring to this summit. It's going to be very data-driven. It's going to provide some historical and current context in terms of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And coming out of that, we have some trainings in mind for all of the different boards to help sort of get everybody rowing in the same direction. So I think that's what's ahead with the zoning town meeting behind us. They've had a chance to catch your breath for half a second and start planning what's next.
Anything else?
I do have a few other items.
Please.
I gave you tonight, before the meeting, a draft of the Board of Health regulations that are going to be discussed on Thursday night at 7 p.m. in the Senior Center. These are the title here, the minimum standards for the keeping of animals on residential properties. These are posted to the town's website under the Board of Health, under animal care. So the Board of Health will be holding a special meeting, 7 p.m. on Thursday. So if you attend the water sewer tour, we promise to have that wrapped up in time for people to make their way to the senior center if you want to listen to the discussion that takes place. Our plan at this point is to bring the zoning changes that would be associated with these regulations to the Board of Selectmen on March 10th. So we would have staff, we'd have Rich Maloney, planning staff, someone from the health department to come and make a presentation in terms of what the roadmap to town meeting would look like on this particular topic. I wanted, the tour's already been mentioned, but you have a flyer here. I know Ann was reaching out today to try to confirm who might be in attendance. And then the last thing I wanted to mention tonight is a letter that you received with your packets on Friday to the school committee at Essex North Shore Agricultural Technical School. We had discussed briefly at the last meeting what we were anticipating in terms of a fiscal year 21 assessment based on the accepted freshman class this year from Danvers. And the context that's provided in this letter is that the increase in our draft assessment this year is more than the draft budget as of today proposes to spend on salaries and operating costs for all of our public safety, public works, and general government budgets combined. So this is a letter that we met with the superintendent. Wayne Marquis is our school building, or our school committee representative. So we met a couple of weeks ago with their team to let them know that this letter would be coming. It's been shared with Joan and Ted because it's likely that there would be some legislative action required if this discussion lifts off the ground. And the letter was distributed earlier today to all of the managers, administrators, and mayors who participate in this district. Within 30 minutes, I heard back from 4 of the community saying that they fully supported this concept, which is essentially to articulate through either an agreement or legislation roughly what the incoming classes would look like by community. Some of the communities pointed out that, their assessments are low this year, but they've had significant and unexpected increases in their assessment in prior years. There was a year 3 years ago where Danvers actually had a negative assessment, so our assessment went down year over year based on incoming class. And that certainly has fully reversed itself this year where we're facing a $630,000 increase in our fiscal year 21 assessment. So really the ask in this letter is that we start a dialogue with the school committee to look at doing what at least 8 other vocational technical schools in the Commonwealth have done, which is to put in place some sort of guidelines for what the composition of these freshman classes will be, which obviously will impact the population of the school 4 years later. So I could be happy to take any questions you have right now. I would suggest, we discussed at the last meeting, the schedule that the administration at the school follows in the spring, trying to make budget presentations all across the region. But I think in a typical budget year where we're talking only about increases or decreases to particular line items, I think that the single presentation does make sense, as we discussed at the last meeting. But I think given the changes in both student population and the associated assessment, it could make sense to invite in the administration to talk to us at one of our upcoming meetings, potentially the March 10th or March 24th.
Any questions?
I have an observation. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Diane?
So, I read through that packet and, they want to put maybe a maximum, whatever, but are we not ever going to readdress the formula?
You're talking about how the assessment gets calculated?
Right, so it's been a pet peeve of mine, Danvers pays a higher per pupil.
Than Salem, but less than Swampscott.
And I understand, but I still think at this point, that's now a choice by these schools on what they spend on their students. We choose to spend more money on our students, and we get punished for that. So I brought it up every year on FinCom, I've brought it up every year here. It's my going away present. That formula is wrong. It's outdated. And, we built a new school and people were asked if they wanted to join, and they did. And they kept the old formula. So
my sense is that because that's modeled on Chapter 70, and because the assessment is really a function much more of the number of students than it is the socioeconomic variables, I don't think that there would be much progress made on that front.
I'll get my spreadsheet out again.
Okay. If you can figure out the formulas, you should come and show
Oh,
us.
no one can, that's the joke, no one can figure it out.
Bill, did you have something?
I've got a different perspective. I taught for 32 years in Danvers in another community, elementary, children up to high school and college, actually. I think that Danvers is at a point now with their high school that they've got to look in a mirror. And I think that this number increasing like this, there's many reasons for it, but one of them that I hear quite often is dissatisfaction with Danvers High School, and they're going to this school, and this school has become unbelievable. It's got a great reputation. I've had students from that school working for me. They are unbelievably well prepared. The school administration is on top of their work-study programs. They're doing a hell of a job up there. And they've got some great people on that school committee that have, and their staff, that's made a great program. And it's attracting what people need today. They don't need necessarily the fine arts or other subjects, but they need to learn how to repair a furnace or become a plumber or a mason or other types of jobs that school is catering to. And they're doing a great job for it now. They had a rocky start to start with, but they got their administration straightened away, I think, and they're doing a great job. That's just another observation from someone, because I know we were always fighting the fact that we were losing kids to the prep of Bishop Fenwick. Well, now they're losing kids to the Vogue. The only problem is this is on our dime, it's not on the private people's dime, and it's going to cost us more money. Certainly I think they're spending about $10,000 more than the public schools are, the public high school, for their education up there. So they're getting a heck of a program.
Thank you. Consent calendar?
And could I make,
Yes.
I just wanted to make, I don't know if I can make the couple thoughts now, some reminders. No, they can wait. Will I have a chance to just remind people of some dates?
No, sure.
Well,
Right now, we're referring to making comments on the Aggie.
on the Aggie,
Right, on the population
Oh, yeah,
and his letter. And right now, I'm going to ask for a motion on the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, thank you. David, would you like to start us off with new business, previous business updates, and closing comments?
yes, thank you, Dan. First of all, after the inspection of the new Public Works building, at 7 o'clock, the Danvers Historical Society is having a presentation on Page Street about the contribution of Black Americans in Danvers and on the North Shore, which sounds really very interesting. That's 7 o'clock. They do ask that you let them know in advance if you're coming, because they want to make sure there's enough chairs. The next thing is, next Monday night is the senior dinner at the Senior Center, which is a men's dinner. I don't know how we can do that, but we do it.
I don't know how you can do that either.
And you can be my guest, Diane.
Thank
It's
you.
a great little take. Bill comes, I've got my ticket, and just so that people in the community will know, all men are, you don't have to be old like us, but it's a senior men's dinner. And
Who's the guest speaker?
it's Captain Brooks from the fire department.
Oh, Brooks, thank you.
Talk
Yep.
about fire and safety and prevention. And I just wanted to say once again, I started to say tonight, the town manager, I think, has done a superb job of building a team of people working in harmony for the good of this community, because we lost a lot of people in the change of administration. And so I say kudos to that. And then just one other thing that just annoys me all the time when I drive by the new traffic light at the head of, at the foot of Summer Street, and how little St. John's Prep paid for it. One of these days, and it won't be before I die, there has to be some legislative change about tax exemption for the various properties that Massachusetts exempts from tax. I understand we have $5 billion worth of property in Danvers, and that about 1/5 of that property is tax exempt. What that means, over and over again, that the widow on Chase Street, who is on fixed income, trying to pay her income taxes to stay in her home, is paying far more than she should in order to have the whole system work. And I hope that someday, and I know we've tried that, and I know we tried the in lieu of tax thing, and I think the town manager did a superb job of getting his head kicked in. And so I'm not asking him to do that again right now, but I hope someday there can be some change in that for the fairness. We have North Shore Community College, we have the Aggie, we have the hospitals, we have especially that beautiful St. John's Prep where I went, but it's not fair. Thank you. Thank
Dan,
you.
may I
Yes.
speak to that? The voluntary pilot program that the town tried has been about as successful as most of the voluntary pilot programs that have been initiated. There was a legislator who reliably proposed the bill on behalf of the MMA year after year to make pilot payments opt out rather than opt in. In other words, local boards would be given the discretion to waive the pilot payment, but otherwise institutions, nonprofits, if they met certain criteria, would be required to make those payments. At this point, there is not a legislator who has stepped forward and said that they'd be willing to sponsor that bill, but that doesn't mean that boards couldn't send letters suggesting just that, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm not shut up. But can we sometime in the next month or 2 or 3 ask Ann Freitas to craft another one of her beautiful letters that we can all endorse as a Board of Selectmen to try to move this closer?
I thought he crafted them.
Ann and I are a good team. If the board was interested in seeing a draft of a letter like that, it could be produced, and then the board could discuss.
I would, but I don't know about the rest of the board.
We can discuss it going forward. It's a good idea. Bill?
Okay, I don't usually come on negative about the town, but I've got something today that really, really bothered me. And it started bothering me yesterday when I discovered it, and it bothers me even more today after my wife took a walk through Endicott Park. The town of Danvers has raped a third of Endicott Park. I cannot believe the disruption of the environment over there for the Frisbee Park. I would say probably 12 acres have been clear-cut in patches or in patches throughout that property. That particular hill, that part of the hill, has been a forest or woods since at least 1900. I've got pictures of our farm showing the back part of that hill all being wooded up behind what's now Robert Road. And to see the amount of trees that were cut down there, and to see I can't believe they could do it. First of all, there was no permit that I know of that they got to work next to wetlands, and there is several instances of high upland wetlands in that woods. And I'm going to have to walk it myself to see it, but the pictures that I saw today was tragic. I think it ranks up there with what the town did at Danvers High School when they put the Dunwing in, and they tore down or cut down 20 acres of woods and blasted out about 3 acres of ledge to make playing fields. And Joe Pennepe beat me in the selectman race that year because he backed the woods and that kind of stuff, and I didn't know about that much. That was back a long time ago. But we did disrupt the environment for Danvers High School dramatically. Covering over a brook was before wetlands laws were in place. They just basically culverted the brook and put the playing fields over there, tore down the 8 or 10, 15 acres of woods. This desecration of Endicott Park is horrendous. And I had an epiphany yesterday. When we first purchased Endicott Park, which was before any of us were involved in town government, there were, I thought, limitations placed upon it because, as I remember, there were people who tried to put a golf course in there and softball fields in there, and they were denied because they were active recreation. So I've got a humble request that may prove to be good or may prove not to be good. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like the town manager to have the town council research the original purchase agreements for Endicott Park and the subsequent renovation that was done in the 1980s that had particular restrictions on the property. I don't believe active recreation was an allowable use, and certainly an active Frisbee golf course is a allowable use. It may help to mitigate the desecration of the wetland or the environment, but I'm sorry, I've always been for open space, and they've just destroyed a 47-acre piece of woods. It may come back, and I know you want.
I need to speak. There was quite a bit of misinformation on Facebook today, and I'd like to clarify some of the things that were bouncing around. For context, so this board voted unanimously in support of this project. It was approved at town meeting in May 2017. The parcel in question is 41 acres. The thinning that occurred on February 14th took place in 3 of the 41 acres. There hasn't been, we had the town's forestry department, which includes professional arborists who are involved. Mayor Tree they employ professional arborists, and it just so happens that one of the 2 abutters to the site is a professional arborist who consults with towns and cities in the region. He went out and walked the site today, and he supported all of the thinning that was done based on what he saw in terms of bittersweet, dead trees, dying trees. So I just wanted to provide a little context, because there was quite a bit of information online. Someone did take the time to call Chris Sanborn today, had a very good conversation with him, and actually went back onto Facebook to report what they had learned from Chris. And so we will continue to ask folks, if you have a question, if you have a concern, please call us. We want to engage, we want to talk. It's a 9-hole course. There was discussion that it was going to be an 18-hole course. The question about the ability to do this project was vetted when the project was put before town meeting in May 2017. But I just wanted to, I'm not trying to dissuade you from your view on the project, but I just wanted to clarify some of the things that were out there.
And I do want to appreciate that Chris answered the call and had a very excellent discussion for about a half an hour with the person involved.
Yep. That's all. Thanks.
Bill, anything else?
I guess nothing that's of any consequence.
Gardner?
I'm all set, thank you.
Diane?
I'm good.
Thank you. So correspondence, I received a letter this weekend from a resident on Purchase Street. I guess his sewer line broke, and he got a bill for $19,000 to fix his sewer line. I thought my tax bill was outrageous. I had forwarded it to David Fields and the town manager, trying to find it here. And the town,
David, you picking up sewage bills now?
No, this was not a David.
that's not this David,
No.
but, oh, the other
Oh,
David,
shoot.
Souza, I'm sorry.
Rich Susan.
David's checking his email.
So I can't find the letter now, but it did say that some municipalities have an insurance program that protects the citizens when the sewer line goes, and I don't know anything about that, but maybe that's something that can be addressed.
I'm familiar with private water and sewer systems. We had a private sewer in Connecticut, and we had a linebacker insurance policy on our sewer line. It just so happened when we had a failure, they tried to send us our premium back to see if they could avoid the repair. I'm not familiar with municipalities who do that. Rich did look at this. He's going to contact the resident. I think one of his concerns, based on the price tag that you shared, is he wants to understand what the extent of the work was. Because there are a couple of different ways to solve these problems.
He did send me the copy of the 3 invoices.
Yep.
I can forward those to
Perfect.
you to forward on to him.
That'd be helpful.
Okay, just,
And I guess as a reminder, so the residents are responsible for the sewer main from where it leaves the main line to their house. But if you're having a failure, it's always a good idea to contact staff and get some input from them before you approve a project to do work that is, for 99.9% of the population, is not something that we're familiar with.
and it would be helpful if there was a list of contractors you could provide to the homeowner.
That we can't do.
Time of emergency, well,
Rich Maloney will never do it.
okay, we'll talk about that. Given the time, I'll save my new business for next month. Please remember the veterans when you see one and thank the veterans. And anything else to come before the board?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, Danvers.